Hello, I'm Mickey Bilbrey, President of the University Health System. All of us associated with the University of Tennessee Medical Center and the University Physicians Association take great pride in being part of the greater UT family. As an official sponsor of the Vol Network, we're proud to bring to you this video documentary of a man many consider to be the most recognized sports figure in the state of Tennessee. It all began right here, within these walls of the old UT Alumni Gym, where a young but talented voice could be heard echoing the play-by-play of intramural games. But from these humble beginnings, a broadcasting legend was born. Over a span of 35 seasons, his voice would become synonymous with Big Orange heroics. He projected a tone, style, and delivery that became an idolized Tennessee tradition. Each of the 1,383 games he broadcast held a suspenseful play-by-play description. Like a true artist, he painted a picture in the minds of millions of listeners. I don't have to mention his name, just his title, the voice of the Vols. The dedication, professionalism, and flair he brought to this role will forever embrace his audience. The communication ability of this man ensures he will remain one of the most decorated and adored individuals in the history of UT sports. So join us now as the UT Medical Center, the University Physicians Association, and the Vol Network present the story of the man, the myth, the legend, the voice.
You hear the enthusiasm building. You see cheerleaders from years past joining this year's cheerleaders because it is homecoming 1990. And as the crowd begins to roar and roar and roar to the deafening cheers of 95,000 fans, the Volunteers coming out to the gate in orange and white. The crowd comes alive. The Volunteers are ready. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. It's football time in Tennessee.
A great writer once said, "There are two ways to spread the light. Be the candle or the mirror that reflects it." For over 3 decades, John Ward has been reflecting the light. It's a light with a distinctly orange hue. In fact, it's been that way since the day he was born. This is his story.
I grew up in Knoxville, in South Knoxville, where my father was head of Tennessee School for the Deaf. My mother was a teacher there, and that's where I grew up.
Born and raised in the Island Home neighborhood of South Knoxville, John Ward, like most of his neighborhood pals, became immersed in sports. Many autumn afternoons passed while playing sandlot football along the banks of the Tennessee River. Just downstream from the Ward household, men named Cafego, Suffrage, Wyatt, and Butler were spending those same autumn afternoons building a dynasty on Shields-Watkins Field.
Well, my father was a Tennessee fan and attended games when that was possible in the 1930s. And my first exposure to Tennessee athletics was through him.
Though not originally from Tennessee, Herschel Ward was quick to adopt orange and white as his own, and quickly set about spreading the gospel according to Bob, Nealon, that is.
I think one thing that was meaningful to me growing up is I remember that my father would listen to the games on radio. He would, in essence, draw for the deaf students who could not hear the radio. He would draw the game on a chart and then would either sign it or he used language they read his lips. And I, as a youngster, would watch that. And I really think that his ability to visualize for people who could not hear might have helped in the early days that maybe I learned how to visualize a little too.
The lessons of communicating to deaf students the sights and sounds of the gridiron left a lasting impression on John. But Herschel Ward's influence spanned many generations. In 1975, this building on the TSD campus was dedicated to the man who touched so many lives during 41 years of service, Herschel R. Ward. The Ward family value of education made an impression on John and his siblings.
Our objective was to be educated, to spend time and make use of public education, and then someday hope to be able to afford to go to college, which all of us did.
Although his father introduced him to Shields-Watkins Field in the late 30s, it wasn't until the 40s that John became part of the team.
But then when I was in the Boy Scouts, the objective of everybody in the Boy Scouts was to become an usher at Tennessee football games, and Boy Scouts were the ushers. And when I got to do that, that was the crowning accomplishment of my life. And I was an usher for 3 or 4 years, maybe more than that.
The seeds were sown. Already well-versed in the art of communication, John could only dream of one day giving voice to the sport and team he adored.
Really, in the back of my mind, if I could ever do that, I probably thought that when I was a little kid growing up. Boy, if I could ever do Tennessee football on the radio, that'd be the greatest thing. I don't know that I consciously ever thought that.
Maybe it was just a pipe dream. Either way, there was an education to pursue. For 4 years, John attended Knoxville High School. Among his many activities, John fulfilled post-war duties in the school's ROTC program. After graduation, the University on the Hill beckoned.
But my first memory of John was sitting with Haywood Harris in the back of a political science class, and I always sat in the back too, and I didn't know them at that time. And they were sitting back there talking, and I'm sure about sports.
We weren't good students at all. In fact, I think one of the professors there, sort of the head of the department, as a matter of fact, thought that we weren't serious about becoming educators, and he was probably right.
John's enthusiasm for sports continued to occupy more of his time, whether in or out of class.
It started when we were students on campus in the early 50s, and we would tape record on an audio tape recorder the fraternity intramural basketball games in the old Alumni Memorial Gym.
Then we would go back to the fraternity house and would listen to the tapes. It was just a college thing to do.
He would be the play-by-play announcer, and then I would add the color commentary to it, and then I would do some play-by-play, and it was just strictly for fun, because after the games, then he would play the tapes back for his fraternity brothers, and I would play my tape back for my fraternity brothers, and it was done strictly for laughs. I mean, there was nothing else other than just sort of a hobby.
He'd get a table at one end of the floor and broadcast the game just to himself and to a tape recorder while the game was going on. And actually, this looked kind of peculiar out there, a guy broadcasting a game with nobody, with it not being going over the air and with nobody aware really of what he was doing over there. But John was so serious about becoming a broadcaster and being prepared when he got the opportunity. He knew when the opportunity came along, he'd just have one chance if he had that. And he made sure that he was ready when the time came.
The time would come eventually. In the meantime, John would simply enjoy the college atmosphere and spend time developing lifelong friendships. At times, however, you might say he and his friends went a little overboard.
John about got us killed one time while we were in college. We bought a boat together. We bought a cruiser. And one day we decided we'd go through the locks down at Fort Loudon. Anyway, we got, they started lowering the water in the lock so we could go into the next level of the lake. And John all of a sudden came up with this great idea, since we were being tossed around so much on the water, that he would tie the boat to the side of the lock. And consequently, after about 30 seconds after he had tied it, we were pointed nose down, ready to fall into the water to an instant death.
John survived the nautical mishap to realize he wasn't cut out for the high seas. Those around him, however, had no problem identifying his true talents.
In working with John and doing those things, it was very, very apparent that he had the three things that you have got to have when you want to be a great sportscaster in radio play-by-play. First thing you have to have is a mind like a steel trap. Second thing you have to have is an inherent sense of drama. The third thing you have to have is you have to have an innate sense of fairness, sportsmanship. And in working with John, it was very, very apparent that he had the whole package.
He had what it took, but a critical link in his evolution came when he took a job at the Knoxville Journal.
During my days at the university, I was a copy boy, which I don't know, that doesn't fit anymore in the business because of computers and all that bit, but the copy boy was the low man on the totem pole. And the copy boy would, when somebody wanted coffee or you wanted to bring in a meal, they say, "Ward, go get coffee." That's what I did. At 40 cents an hour is where I started. I did that for 3 or 4 years. In those days, 40 cents an hour wasn't all that bad to somebody who had absolutely nothing, which is what I had. And it helped pay some of the expenses of going to school. Then, when one of the writers in the sports department, I think probably it was Haywood Harris, who was a sports writer, and I was a copy boy. He had been a copy boy. And he maybe left or whatever, I don't remember specifically, but they said, "Ward, would you like to become a sports writer?" And I said, "Yeah, that would be great." So I wouldn't have to go get coffee. I could tell whoever the copy was, go get me coffee. So I got a raise and got the job to 75 cents an hour. And that lasted a year or two.
John continued burning the candle at both ends, as a law student by day and sports reporter by night. It was in the position of sports writer that John's big break presented itself.
Each of us was assigned at the Knoxville Journal to go out and cover a high school game on Friday nights. What happened that week, that the station manager from WKGN came by the office, told Ben Bird that they were looking for an announcer to broadcast the high school game, that something had happened to the announcer they planned to have for the game. And Bird looked over at John Ward and says, "There's your man."
And he said, I happen to be in the sports department. He said, "Do you know anybody who can broadcast this game? The sports announcers left town." And I said, "I'm covering that game for the Journal. I'll just broadcast it." Joking. And it so happened that a newspaper man always gets to a game about 2 minutes before it starts. The radio guy gets there an hour to get nervous. So I got there 2 minutes. I said, "You're supposed to be on. You're doing the game. You're doing the game." So that's when I started broadcasting the game.
Once behind the mic, John discovered he had true talent for radio. Many of his friends were discovering he also had quite a sense of humor.
One thing people probably don't know about John is that he was a newscaster at one time on WKGN. He handled the 6 o'clock news every night. It was a low-budget program, really. John had the AP wire, and that was about it. So in order to sort of spruce up the broadcast, he would read a bulletin, then he would get me on the phone to be whoever was in the news that particular day. I had to sort of try to copy the voice of what I thought somebody would be. For instance, he'd be talking about a murder in Chicago, and I would all of a sudden be Lieutenant Tony Antonini of the Chicago Police Force, and I would tell about the crime scene and so forth. Then maybe a couple of days later, the British ambassador of the United States would make some kind of a statement. But anyway, we were finally discovered. Somebody commented that the British ambassador sounded a lot like me, so we stopped that after about a month or so.
The broadcast was not carried anywhere except in Knoxville. So if a team from Ohio came in here, no one knew who they were. So he would take and give his friends names. He would have one of his friends, Haywood Harris or someone like that, playing quarterback on the other team. And of course, all his friends would listen to see what names he was going to use for the other team. And he got all his friends to listen just to see what position they were playing.
More than just his friends were listening. John was developing a loyal following. And because of his success on the radio, the end was near for his budding career in journalism.
So Mr. Smith called me into his office, the editor of the Knoxville Journal. And he said, "How much are you making?" I said, "I'm making 75 cents an hour." He said, "We're going to give you a raise because you've done a very good job for us. We're going to raise you to, say, $2 an hour, whatever." And I said, "Boy, that's terrific. I really appreciate that." And he said, "And you're fired."
It wasn't so much that he got fired, it was more like a transfer because the Smith family owned both the radio station and the newspaper.
And I'll never forget, he said, "Your future is not in the newspaper business." And I said, "Okay."
As it turned out, John's future was about to take an unexpected turn.
Well, I was drafted when I got out of law school. That was one of the reasons I went to law school, is that I thought maybe I would be able to dodge the draft. Didn't work.
But fate would step in to shape John's career further. While stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, John would be assigned to duty under a general who happened to have more than a passing interest in America's pastime.
He said, we want you to broadcast the games on Armed Forces Radio or wherever it was, I said, great, because I thought that would get me out of doing other things, which it did. So I became very close to General Lynch. And so when they had the World Baseball Tournament, they came in and they had the World Series of Army baseball at Fort Benning. And he said, and they were going to bring in their announcers and whatever, and General Lynch said, Private Ward will broadcast the games. And Private Ward broadcast the games.
While still in the service, John received word from WKGN that his old post behind the microphone broadcasting high school football games would be waiting for him when his tour of duty was complete.
So I got out of the Army 3 months early and came back and did high school football games. And then the radio station then got the rights, I think that year, I'm pretty sure that year, to Tennessee basketball. And so I did the Tennessee basketball games.
It was John's first taste of broadcasting Tennessee sports. And unlike today's game, chartered jets and first-class accommodations were not standard fare. This was a different era.
There were no charter planes. There were no charter buses. There were cars. And the coach had a car, the assistant coach had a car, and then I had a car. And so we would meet wherever we met and say, okay, Ammerman, you and Termolen and whoever else, you go with Ward, I'll take him. And so that's the way we traveled. And I said, well, what am I getting out of this? Because I was in it, said, well, you get mileage. Well, I never got a penny. I never got a cent for gas. And half the time, of course, I'm having to buy all their meals. The players, they don't have any. That's the way we traveled. And it was funny. It wasn't too funny then, but actually it was funny. It was funny because, the players were priceless. And we would have all kinds of problems where, a car got lost or whatever. But that's the way we traveled. And we'd show up at the game. We'd usually get there the day before, I guess. I don't even remember that. I'm sure we had hotel rooms. I don't know how that worked either. Sure, I paid for that.
John quickly took on more and more responsibility at WKGN. Broadcasting alone was not enough. Soon he was program director and then sales executive for the station. His talent and versatility soon got the attention of local advertising agencies.
Hello, I'm John Ward. Welcome to the film department of Lavage & Davis.
I was offered an opportunity with an advertising agency, and part of the deal was that I could not broadcast, that I had to devote full time to the advertising agency, which was right. I didn't like it, but that was right.
We established this TV department so that we could produce for our clients TV commercials and full-length films of high quality in less time at lower cost.
John Ward was kind of the creative director, the director, period. He could sit down with a piece of paper and throw it in a typewriter and come up with a piece of copy quicker than anybody ever met. He would write the commercial, shoot the commercial, edit the commercial.
Concise and effective communication was the common denominator in John's professional education. The art of film editing would add a chapter to his communication curriculum.
You've got 1,000 feet of film, and you've got to reduce that to 34 feet of film because that's the commercial. Okay, all of a sudden, you have to say, I've got to throw away over 900 feet of film that's good to get 34 feet of film that's great and will tell the story. Or when you broadcast a football game, there are hundreds of things you could say at a football game. Hundreds of things that you could say that you cannot say because you don't have time. So a play-by-play announcer has to have the ability to edit out all that great stuff and only talk about, in his mind, what is the most important stuff. So the two really are sort of going hand in hand.
Speaking of hand in hand, not only did John become an ace ad man while at Lavage and Davis, it was at the agency that John met and married Barbara. While at Lavage and Davis, John produced many successful campaigns, but none more memorable than the ads he created for Lay's Meats.
Lay's, 3 little pigs sing merrily. We're for Lay's, dum diddle-dee-dee.
If you grew up in East Tennessee, you no doubt can sing along to these words written by John Ward. He did, however, have some help from Nashville's legendary record producer Owen Bradley. When Bradley wasn't making country music history, he dabbled in advertising jingles and was more than happy to pass trade secrets on to John.
He said, well, ain't nothing to write music. He said, go down there to the drugstore and get a record that you like, a song you like, and write words to fit the song, and come back here in a week and we'll record it. So we went down to the drugstore and got Here Comes Peter Cottontail. That was a little record in the drugstore on the rack. In those days, they don't have them anymore. And so I said, Here Comes Peter Cottontail. I've forgotten now. Hopping down the bunny trail. That was the words, right? Yeah. So I said, Lay's, 3 little pigs sing merrily. We're from Lay's, diddle-dee-dee. And that's how it was written. I just didn't come up with that. I wrote, I worked on it for a while, but it didn't take long. So I went back over there to see Owen Bradley. That was about my first big job. I'd been there a year or so, and they said, Ward, you do this. So I was scared to death and went over there. And I thought he'd have to call musicians and everything in, And he said, well, let me hear it. And he went over the piano. I told him, well, it's written to Here Comes Peter Cottontail. Here's the words. And so he said, and then he went back and he said, that was it. That was it. That's when the song was written. I said, I wrote that. He said, yeah, you wrote that.
Yeah. Ward continued to concentrate on the advertising business, but there was an offer from a very persuasive man to broadcast Tennessee basketball games.
And then Coach Mears was the basketball coach, and they had spoken to me every year because I did his TV show. I handled the sponsorship of that and everything with the local bank. And he kept saying, we want you to do the broadcast, and I wanted to do them. And so I went to my associates and said, I would like to do the games. They said, well, you know the deal. You know the deal. So I didn't do the games for, I don't know how many years it was, 7 or 8 years.
As it turned out, one of Ward's advertising clients was instrumental in securing the play-by-play duties.
John had to gain the permission of the ad agency, and the only way the ad agency was going to give him permission was if his largest client would give him permission to do the games. And there was a conflict there because their number one competitor was already a sponsor of the Vol Network. So John had a battle he had to face, but he figured out a way to work it out.
And it just hit me when I said, well, look, I'm not going to do their commercials. I'm just going to broadcast the games.
That was good enough for the folks at Lay's, and suddenly there was little choice but to allow the voice to seek his destiny. Still, it wasn't a done deal.
There was one more hurdle to cross.
Ward wanted the consent of the man who had been calling Tennessee's basketball games. His name was Lowell Blanchard, and he was not ready to hand over the microphone.
The salesman at the station came to me and said, look, we want you to do the play-by-play. I said, I'm not going to do the play-by-play unless Lowell agrees that I'm going to do the play-by-play. And they said, well, we can let you do one half and Lowell. I said, I'm not going to get any deal like that. I don't want to do that. I said, if we're going to do the deal, I would be interested in do the play-by-play, but I don't want to upset Lowell. But we kept talking, and so we sort of struck it off. Lowell and I got along pretty well after lunch. He said, look, I don't like to do play-by-play anyway. And he said, I'll do the color, and you do the play-by-play. I said, well, that'd be fine with me. And from that point on, we became very, very close friends.
With Blanchard committed to do color, John Ward signed on in the lead role, the voice of the basketball Vols.
Coming out of the 1-3-1. McIntosh on the far side. A long looping pass goes to Whitley. Jump shot from 10 feet. Good.
Well, because John had prepared himself while he was in college by doing the intramural games, his first broadcast went over real well, and from then on it went on, and John was determined all along that he was going to be the very best broadcaster that he could be.
The 1964-65 campaign would be his first official season on the Vol Network, a season that proved to be a lot of fun, both on the basketball court and in the radio booth, with his newfound color man, and full of color he was.
Blanchard, we get in the room on the road. It's a boring situation. In those days, we played on Saturday and Monday. So you'd go on Friday. You had all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday to sit around the hotel room. And that's boring, except with Blanchard. What Lowell would do, we would have the, as Bud Ford calls them, the soapbox operas. We'd have the soap opera shows on, and we would turn the sound off. And he would play all parts. And we were watching on the TV screen, and Lowell was playing every part. And I can assure you the dialogue was not the same. But then I said, we all hear Blanchard do this. And so it got so people would come to our room, and there would be 10, 15 people sitting around listening to Blanchard perform for 3 hours the soap operas.
Blanchard expanded his repertoire to include his own bawdy versions of other shows. Road trip regulars couldn't wait to gather in the Ward Blanchard hotel room to listen. One of the fans of the soapbox operas was none other than legendary Kentucky basketball coach Adolph Rupp.
And so Coach Rupp came up to our room to watch Meet the Press, which was the sound turned down and people asking questions and Blanchard playing all parts. And from then on, Rupp, on every Sunday, he didn't have to be asked. Rupp was knocking on the door when Meet the Press. He said, go it, let me in here, let me in to watch it.
The Ward Blanchard team called some big wins for the Vols that very first season.
2 points for A.W. He's 11 short of 1,000 in his career.
Led by third-year coach Ray Mears and Captain A.W. Davis, the Vols rolled to an impressive 20-5 record and second-place finish in the SEC. It was the beginning of a golden era in Big Orange basketball, and the voice of John Ward told you what time it was.
And tonight, it's basketball time in Tennessee.
Wherever it was, when Tennessee played, when Tennessee walked in, everybody says, there's Tennessee.
Brooks for Tennessee, racing down court, could take it all the way, gives to Ellis. Ellis for 2, hands up. Ellis with a double stop. Hahn faking wide, goes under, feeds it back out to Croft. 17-foot one-hander, bottom. Croft saves the drive, bounce pass Wood, 10-foot jumper off the glass. Good. Wood is good, and Tennessee leads 74-59. So lead pass right side, Bertelkamp, 18-footer Bertelkamp off the glass, good. Bertelkamp's good. Carter behind the back feed. Tony White, 15-foot jumper. It's good. Brilliant lead. 1 point. Nickens looks for somebody to come open. The pass comes in. They put it under by Carter. 28-footer by Carter is good. Tennessee wins the game. Tennessee wins the game.
Just when the Ward and Blanchard team was hitting its stride, the laughter subsided.
He died 3 years later than after that. He passed away, and it's just not right. And I was hurt, and it was painful for me.
When Lowell passed away, Mrs. Blanchard called on John. She leaned on John for a lot of things, and John was very helpful to her. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't know, but he was very helpful to Sally Blanchard when Lowell passed away.
Ward never even considered filling the vacant seat behind the color mic. He was on his own, and as his legend grew, so too did Tennessee basketball. The Vols had established themselves as one of the SEC's top programs. Admission into a sold-out Stokely Athletic Center was the hottest ticket in town.
But by 1965, Tennessee basketball had begun to grow. Best documented by the fact that 2 years later, the Armory Fieldhouse was doubled in size to Stokely Athletic Center. And that was a direct result of the impact of A.W. Davis and Coach Mears, who was such, not only an outstanding coach, but was such a promoter that he personally, on his own, got out and almost willed people to come to the games.
When I came here, there was no enthusiasm. We only had 400 people in the gym the last game of the season before. We had to build. We had to build, and he was part of this building because he came 2 years after I was there, and he had to help me build, and he did it by his sayings like, give him 6. Who else says that? I've never heard it before. Where'd he come up? I don't know. I never asked. I said, where'd he come up with? Give him 6, you know. That's in football. Basketball, bottom, say. When we won our first championship, we got nice rings and so on, but on that ring, I designed the ring, and on the ring I put a little hoop and a net, in the bottom of it I wrote the cross. I didn't say Ward or anything, I said bottom. And this is the way I felt. I thought he had a lot to do with us winning the championship.
It was Barnum and Bailey and part Hollywood. If Mears was the ringmaster, Ward was the show's MC. The Vols and their colorful coach created almost as much commotion on the road as they did at home, and Ward was there to describe all the hoopla to everyone listening.
When we had a home game, they'd tape it, and they'd play it back 10 o'clock that night, and of course I would hear John Ward. Normally I wouldn't hear him because I was coaching, but I would hear John Ward. He knew exactly what I was doing. The other team would put in a diamond and one, which is a very unusual defense. He would catch it faster than I would catch it.
He just painted a beautiful word picture of what was happening on the court. He could see things that people were doing away from the ball. He understood the game.
The picture Ward painted for his listeners of Vol basketball broadcasts would span an incredible 4 decades, and he would relay the heroics of Tennessee's most heralded stars, including Dale Ellis, Tony White, and, of course, Bernie and Ernie.
Oh, man.
Lead pass inside to King. King spins, shoots over, shot, good by King. King of the Volunteers.
He was totally focused, completely on the 94 feet of the basketball court. That was his world, and he was determined to rule.
Drives, plays it back over his head. Oh! Wrapped that one up in orange. An unbelievable move by King of the Volunteers.
Ernie Grunfeld, smart.
Pass in front court, Grunfeld looks to King. Grunfeld drives into the lane, goes for a layup shot. Good! What a move he made! Ernie G. of Tennessee.
And he was a wonderful basketball player.
Grunfeld, he's got a shot fake. In closer, 15-footer in the air. Bottom! Goes up for a layup shot. Good! And he was fouled. What a play by Ernie G.
Miles and miles of memories accumulated with each passing era, and the miles traveled most of the time were done the hard way, not by necessity, but by design. It became a tradition for Ward to pass up the convenience and quickness of taking the team charter to road games in favor of driving with longtime companion Ed Bailoff.
And he would not fly. He never flies. He was coming back. Was a merchant for years and years, and I think probably one time flying back from New York or whatever, got in a real rough flight, and he said, "Dear Lord, get me out of this. I'll never fly again." He's never flown again. That's the way he does it. And he had been driving to some games and riding the bus to some games and whatever. And we went on a bus, and they had the boom boxes. The players, this was and that was, and they didn't have ear things. They just played them. And, I mean, everybody had a boom box, and all of them were playing something different, and it was unbelievable. And I said, I was sitting up close to DeVoe. I said, I can't handle that. And he said, no. I said, that's part of it, part of it. I said, that's not part of it. And so we finally got to Athens. I turned to Bailoff. I said, how was that? He said, that's the worst experience of my life. That's the worst. I said, I can't handle that. And so he took the bus back. It was after the game, and so they went to sleep. We were very happy about that. And from that day on, I said, well, I'm not ride that bus anymore. He said, I'll drive. That's how we started driving.
You're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Well, don't run into a truck.
This van's got over about 100,000 miles, and I would say 90,000 of it's been on basketball trips.
That it's really 2 hours and 8 minutes to the Edelweiss,
I'm going to throw in about 5 minutes for making pictures, so we should be there at 11:21.
We joke around. We've been telling the same stories over and over for 20 years, and we just sort of change the endings a little bit each time.
This is a beautiful drive from here over to Copper Hill. Beautiful.
We always stop at the same places. We buy gas at the same places. We buy ice cream at the same places.
Anybody want a sample? Get you a slab. Well, he's going to get something else here. He wants, what do you want? The chocolate? Chocolate plain fudge. How much you want of that? 20 pounds?
No. If we're traveling, wherever we're traveling, we've been there before, and we know all the stops, and that's about the way it runs. It's a routine thing.
Let's eat. It's 11:21. We said it would be here at 11:21. It's now 11. No, we got 30 seconds.
Bailoff's greatest line is, everybody's got brakes. That's true. He's got brakes.
With all the seasons and all the games, did they ever get lost?
Oh, we got lost. We got lost this year. We go through the 4-lane highway on this little road, 2-lane road. It becomes a 1-lane road. It becomes a gravel road. And so I say, I don't think this is it. I think we're lost. And there was a house over there, and I said, we might go over there and ask them where we are. And he said, no, we're lost. And if we knock on that door, we may get shot. So we turned around and ran over the poor guy's yard and went back to a 4-lane highway and turned left. And that was the road to Athens.
At this time, Ward was the popular voice of the basketball Vols, but was also involved in Tennessee football. His association, however, didn't begin in radio or television. On football Saturdays in Knoxville, Ward's voice could be heard booming across Shields-Watkins Field as the public address announcer. His most memorable game as the PA announcer came when the underdog Vols stopped Heisman Trophy winner Billy Cannon just short of the end zone to preserve a 14-13 victory over number 1 ranked and defending national champion LSU. Fans in the stadium couldn't believe their eyes, but they soon learned their ears would not deceive.
The Doug Dickey Show, exclusive films of the Tennessee Vols, featuring Tennessee football coach Doug Dickey, presented every week by...
In the mid-'60s, another opportunity presented itself. Doug Dickey was Tennessee's new head football coach, and Ward was asked to help produce a television show highlighting UT and its new coach. As with most projects, Ward didn't just dabble in it, he dove in head first.
I can remember him running around with a clipboard and a stopwatch, and he was making notes and giving directions like crazy. And there were probably 2 or 3 camera people in the press box and camera people all over the field.
He also knew there was more to it than production. Someone had to get out and sell the show. That someone was John Ward.
Tennessee football is, without a doubt, the biggest single activity in the state of Tennessee. The combination of the University of Tennessee, whose campus is the state of Tennessee. The UT football team, Tennessee's single biggest activity. And a professionally produced TV show in full color, called by newspapers and TV network observers as the smoothest of its kind. All combined to make sponsorship of the weekly show one of the most merchandisable vehicles in the state.
Thanks in part to Ward's efforts, the show was a huge success. Doug Dickey and John Ward, 2 young professionals at similar stages of their lives, developed a special kinship.
He was a young coach. He was a very young football coach. And I was a reasonably young person as far as broadcasting the games is concerned. I was new. We were both new. We were both experimenting. We were both gambling. We were both having the opportunity to fall flat on our face because there was no track record. And so that sort of bonded us, I think.
A yard shy of a first. It'll be second down, a yard to go.
Coach Warren has hit Denny twice. How does he pick his target?
Well, certainly our receivers are numbered on each pass pattern, if it's called in the huddle or automatic at the line of scrimmage. And he goes through a sequence of 1, 2, 3, looking at the receivers to find the one that he wants to throw to.
By 1968, John Ward was firmly established as a Vol Network personality. When it became apparent that veteran Vol Network football announcers George Mooney and Bob Fox were retiring from the airwaves, Ward became the logical choice.
He was doing the coaches show on Sunday. He was doing the coaches show on Thursday nights. So he had that natural tie-in with football. He had been the public address announcer for the stadium. So he was a known quantity, a known entity, and the fans already were digging him.
Well, Coach Dickey, it's bound to be an exciting football season coming up, and I think it's going to be an exciting activity for the insurers of Tennessee.
With his deep affection for basketball, his advertising agency, plus the marketing of the Dickey Show, the question was, did he have the time and desire to broadcast football, too?
Yes, I wanted to broadcast football. Once I got in, I'd always wanted to, even when I was a twerp. And so Coach Woodruff called me into his office, and he said, "Well, Ward, George isn't going to broadcast the games. Would it interfere with you selling the Dickey Show on TV to broadcast the games?" And I said, "I think I can do both." He picked up the phone and he called Dickey, who was down the hall. I'm sure they'd already set this up. And he said, "He says he can do both." And I didn't hear, but I assumed Dickey said, "Well, okay." And so that's exactly how I was hired.
If one word were chosen to describe John Ward, it would be prepared. Knowing that, it should not seem so unusual that a recording of Ward's first Tennessee football broadcast was recently uncovered.
As the 1967 season gets underway in Los Angeles.
It's a broadcast that never went over the air and occurred a full year before he officially became UT's play-by-play announcer.
Tennessee at the 18. Warren, the quarterback. The give goes to Fulton. Touchdown for Tennessee!
With Ward tabbed as the new football play-by-play voice, the only question was who would be the new analyst. Former Vol co-captain Bill Anderson became one of several former players to be considered.
The other people, for one reason or another, were eliminated. I've forgotten how. And it ended up that Anderson was basically the only one left standing. But we just sort of let things drift. And finally Woodruff called me up and he said, "Well, what'd you decide?" And I said, "Well, we talked to Bill Anderson." He said, "Well, he's the man."
Ward and Anderson's first broadcast would set the tone for what would be an exciting and glorious 31-year career together. The 1968 season opener against SEC favorite Georgia was historic in that it was the first college game played on artificial turf.
There is no time left on the clock when Weich fires a do-or-die pass to Gary Christ.
The contest became an instant classic. Tight end Ken DeLong hauled in a two-point conversion to earn a 17-17 tie with the Bulldogs. It was the first of many thrilling plays and games the two would describe over the next 3 decades. They seemed to perfectly complement each other.
Did either one of us audition? No. Did either one of us send in a tape? No. He didn't have any tapes. We just sat down and did it.
Ward supplied the eloquent delivery and precise description, while Anderson added the knowledge and experience from playing the game at its highest level.
I was pretty confident that we could do it, but then you never really know. So we got started, and I'm sure he was as nervous as I was nervous, and we got started. And about during the first half, it was a little rough, but nobody else would know that. I knew that. I knew enough about the business that nobody else would really have realized how rough we were, how ragged we were. And all of a sudden, about the third quarter, in my mind, while trying to keep up with the game, I said, "This deal ain't bad. This is going to work."
Ward and Anderson quickly developed a unique and long-lasting chemistry and natural understanding of each other. It was a winning formula that would take little maintenance in the years to come.
We hoped to get through the first game and not really make fools out of ourselves. After we did the first game and we, critiqued it and so forth, then you do the second game, third game, then you finish the year. And then by then I was into basketball, and you do that. By then, just become a habit.
The network began a period of rapid growth and expansion. In 1970, Ward took on a larger and more time-consuming role by directing the marketing and sales efforts of the network. By the mid-'70s, Ward's reputation as an announcer grew in the state of Tennessee and spread around the country.
A lot of people write in and say they enjoy the broadcast. A lot of people write in and say they don't enjoy certain things. A lot of people write in and say you're terrible.
In 1976, he was named Best College Announcer in the country by Nationwide Publications of Los Angeles, whose works were used heavily by people in the betting industry.
To be selected by those, I don't know anybody who's more knowledgeable. When people say, well, you shouldn't tell people that, you know, a betting outfit picked you. I said, that means more to me than any award I ever got.
Our thanks to the offensive line, the Volunteers of Tennessee, a unit, and a great one at that.
Recognized as one of the top announcers in the country, Ward was approached by other universities, professional sports teams, and national networks. He had numerous opportunities to make more money, locate in larger markets, and assume higher profile positions. Ward, however, remained committed to his business and the University of Tennessee for a couple of basic reasons.
I'm going to be honest with you. One thing, of course, I never wanted to leave. I don't see why anybody would want to leave East Tennessee. To me, there's not any place better to live.
He lived in Tennessee all his life, and I think that's an important thing for people to understand. John Ward could have gone to a network. He could have gone to New York. He could have gone to Los Angeles. He had offers from the TV networks and from national radio networks.
I think broadcasting Tennessee football and basketball games on the Vol Network is the best broadcasting job in the country, period. Why take a second-rate job paying you 3 times as much when you can have the first-rate job? That's the way I look at it.
He is one of the most loyal persons that I know to his friends, to the institution for whom he works, and for those things that he believes in.
Through the years, John Ward believed in the University of Tennessee, and in 1994, he and Barbara donated the largest endowment gift ever to the UT Athletic Department. Though John never wanted the figure published, sources confirm the gift was for millions of dollars. It was his way of saying thanks for hiring him to do the best job in America. As the seasons grew, John Ward, along with his partner Bill Anderson, became as much a part of Tennessee football Saturday as the Vols running through the T.
It's football time in Tennessee. Good afternoon, everybody. Tennessee and Vanderbilt playing at Nashville, Tennessee this afternoon. And working with me again today is the analyst on our Vol Network radio broadcast, Bill Anderson, who back in 1955 was the hero of the Tennessee-Vanderbilt game. Do you remember that one, Bill?
Very well, John, but that's been a long time ago.
You were slender and you were very sinewy in those days, still very sinewy.
And slender.
Tell us a little bit about this Vanderbilt team today. What Vol fans can really anticipate from Vanderbilt?
Well, I think you're going to see Vanderbilt putting the ball up in the
A generation grew up listening to the duo paint priceless memories by describing the pageantry, tradition, and excitement of Tennessee football. The enjoyment of listening to Ward on the statewide stadium became a passion that was passed down in the family to sons and daughters. Ward grew to become a legendary figure, but one that everyone felt like they knew personally. When Tennessee became a favorite of the television networks, Vol fans simply turned down the television volume and turned up the Vol network. Fans lived and died, agonized and celebrated with every descriptive word Ward uttered. As sports writer Larry Woody of the Tennessean once put it, when John Ward talks, people listen.
Gets away from one man, running with the football. Brett True at the 15, still has the ball at the 10, spinning 3 at the 5. He scores for Tennessee. You can't describe it. There's no way to describe it. Just rack up 6. and give it to Holloway.
Leads the block, gets one, 40, 45, 50. Will he go all the way? Gets it. 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 76.
Give goes to the right side. Big hole opens up. Gets to the 5, to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, to the 25, to the 30, to the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20.
Running back split. Bueller back to throw. Left end. Out into the flat. Broken up. Was that intercepted in midair? Ladies and gentlemen, what a play by Dale Jones. He was 2 feet away from Mike Shula, and as
Back
Shula
up to the 15, working to the 20, Stutter stepping to the 25, breaking to the 30, outside to the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, cutting to the far sideline, down to the 45, to the 40, 35, 30, 15, 10, 5, 4,
Powell, right side 40, 45, 50, gets outside 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 60 yards. Jeff Powell, touchdown, Big Orange.
Holloway looking. Holloway will run. Holloway at the 10. Holloway at the 5. Holloway dives. Give him 6. Give him 6 large ones. Over, around, and over the top. Condridge Holloway brings the ball and the crowd to life.
Cobb is the tailback. This is Cobb. Up the middle, 20, 25, 30. Breaks outside 35. Turns it on 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him 6. 79 yards. Touchdown, Reggie Cobb.
He's at the 40, he's at the 45, he's at the 50, he's at the 45, he's at the 40, he's at the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Jonathan Jones. Johnny Jones, a punter, Tennessee.
The kick is up. The kick is good. No, it is no good. It is no good. It is no good. Tennessee beats Notre Dame. The kick is in the air, and the kick this time is no, sir-ree. No, sir-ree. Final score, Tennessee 20, Florida 17. Pandemonium reigns.
Manning sneaks. Edges forward. Falls down. Has no whistle yet. Manning rolling to the right side. Motions to throws down into the end zone. And it is touchdown, Tennessee. Marcus Nash. Back to throw is Kelly. Kelly throws the ball full down at the 35, down to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, down to the 5, down to the 4, down to the 3, down to the 2, down to the end zone. Touchdown, Aaron Hayes with a sensational call as Tennessee anticipates the win. Holloway coming to the near sideline, looking into the end zone in trouble. Holloway getting down, he's going to be pursued. Throws it all down into the end zone. It is caught by Cedars. There two. With Larry Cedars two. Sensational scrambling play. Holloway to Cedars. Tennessee leads Clemson 29-28. I do not believe this game, but one thing is sure, Bill Anderson, it ain't over yet.
No, it was not over yet, but all good things must come to an end. The day that Tennessee fans hoped would never come arrived on June 3rd, 1998.
After consulting with people in the athletic department, the Vol Network, sponsors, and stations, All of us have decided that the upcoming year, 1998-99, will be my final year broadcasting for the University of Tennessee. I have a prepared statement. I'm going to read it verbatim. It's time.
The announcement saddened Vol faithful around the globe. Ward and Anderson were the longest-running radio tandem in college football, and Ward had been the singular voice of Vol basketball since the 1964-65 season. At least fans would get one more year to savor, honor, and thank. His announcement set off a stirring and memorable 10-month-long thank-you farewell celebration. Letters and phone calls poured in at such a volume that the highly organized Ward couldn't keep up with all of them.
Pulled down by Jamal Lewis, who makes a oh, what a juke move. What a move, I do not believe it.
Throughout the 1998-99 season, Ward was revered as part rock star, part royalty, part folk hero.
I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought I did. But the response of fans, listeners, has been overwhelming.
Thank you very much. I'll see you, Andrew.
Over the years, John had established
Appreciate
many
it.
personal
Bye-bye.
rituals. In spite of the hoopla surrounding his final year behind the mic, he was determined to resume his normal game day routine. His tradition of watching the pride of the Southland Marching Band's pregame rehearsal remained intact on this mid-September morning.
They may not let us in. We're about on time.
A full 12 hours before kickoff, John was already roaming the campus. John spent the time, as always, preparing. After reviewing the evening's notes, he took time out to speak to members of the band he adores.
The voice of the Vols, John Ward.
I can't handle this too well, I tell you that. I like your shirt. Yeah. There are thousands of people, believe it or not, certainly hundreds, who are here to see you take that first step. And they'll live another year happy, exhilarated, excited, encouraged, because you take that perfect first step. There is no band like this one. Thank you.
It was a memorable moment for John.
Shut me up. I can't. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
As their final season of broadcasting continued, Ward and Anderson's name and faces were hard to miss. The Vol Network's kickoff call-in show site outside Neyland Stadium was packed in all directions for all 6 home games as fans tried to participate in the show, get an autograph, photo, or just one last look at the voice of the Vols and his trusty sidekick. As the season progressed, it was apparent a special year was in the making, both on and off the field. One of the highlights came at homecoming on November 7th, as Ward and Anderson were honored with an all-star tribute and dinner.
People came miles and miles that really weren't going to go to the game. That might surprise. I know a lot of people in there that I saw and came up and said, "We ain't got tickets to the game."
The gala, titled Give 'em Six, attracted an overflow crowd to Thompson Bowling Arena.
John has told you what had happened over 31 years. Bill told us how or why, because John didn't know. I'll tell you.
It was an emotional and lighthearted day as famous Tennesseans and former Vols turned out to say thank you along with the listeners and fans.
As I said there, that while I wish they hadn't have had that, and I honestly meant that, I wish they hadn't gone to all that trouble to put all those tables out and put all those decorations on the table and hand out all those posies they did to the women and all that stuff. That was too much trouble. but I wouldn't have missed it. And I would not have missed this year and what people have said and felt for anything.
John, I could list all of your awards and honors and never mention your greatest achievement. In the last 30 years, nobody in the state of Tennessee, not Elvis, not Dolly, and not even Peyton, has brought as much joy and drama and excitement to the people of Tennessee as John Ward. So John Ward, on behalf of all my teammates and every basketball player since 1965, for making us better than we were, we thank you from the very bottom of our hearts.
At the gala, country music star Kenny Chesney gave a live, touching performance of a song he had written in tribute to the voice of the Vols. The song, Touchdown Tennessee, was an immediate hit in the Volunteer State. It debuted on the Billboard Country Chart at number 64 with a bullet, unheard of for a regional song. Released as a single, the song amazingly sold over 100,000 copies.
With a voice you could hear all the way to Rocky Top. Play-by-play for 31 years, it never stopped. And we heard 2015, 10 and 5. Your voice was our eyes, and we could see Touchdown Tennessee. Quarterback rolled right. It was a long throw downfield to Willie Gault. And for a second, no one knew if it was caught. And we heard 2015, 10 and 5. Your voice was our eyes, and we could see Touchdown Tennessee. Your voice painted us a picture of all the losses and the wins. And it's so hard to imagine a game without your voice again. Saying 2015, 10 and 5, your voice was our eyes, and we could see Touchdown Tennessee. So thank you, John. What a run, it's been fun for us all. All the way our hearts pounded when you called. 2015, 10 and 5. Your voice was our eyes, and we could see Touchdown Tennessee. So thank you, John.
Last summer, they came to me and said, you know, you're going to have a testimonial or whatever. We want to know exactly what kind of testimonial or special day you want. My answer was none. It would be too much trouble for the people who put it together. And I would verse a moment to say, what a program and presentation they put together. But the main reason that we don't need a special day is every time people listen to a football or basketball broadcast, that is a special day. 350 football broadcasts, 350 special days for us, 647 coaches' TV shows, 647 special days for us, 992 basketball special days, 1,987 special days. And so I said, we don't need another special day. And yet I want all of you to know, sincerely, I would not have missed sharing this special day with all of you for anything in the world.
Later in the season, head coach Philip Fulmer and the Tennessee seniors asked Ward and Anderson to lead the team in the traditional Vol Walk to Neyland Stadium before the regular season finale against Kentucky on November 21st. It would be another magic moment.
The Vol Walk for me in itself was a very moving time. I cried. Obviously, people could see that. I'm not hiding anything. And I made it a point to go to as many seniors as were hanging around. And I said, I appreciate your asking us to do this. And they said, we wanted you to do this.
Perhaps one of the most surprising and moving events occurred on the road in the final game of the regular season at Vanderbilt. Ward and Anderson took the Vol Network's pregame show, the kickoff call-in show, to Nashville's Centennial Park. An estimated 10,000 Big Orange fans showed up to create a concert-like atmosphere. Tennessee had enjoyed a storybook season in amassing a perfect 11-0 regular season record. The Vols defeated Mississippi State in the SEC championship game in Atlanta to win back-to-back Southeastern Conference titles.
Big points, give him a TD.
The Vols found themselves one game away from their first national championship in 48 years.
So, Vol fans, Seminole fans everywhere, listening throughout the world, know the time is here. A once-in-a-lifetime moment.
It was the game Vol fans had been waiting on for ages.
As across the way, the Volunteers come racing onto the field. What time is it? You know. As Tennessee comes barreling out onto the greensward of the Fiesta Bowl in Tempe, Arizona, it's football time in Tennessee.
Like those fans, John has special memories of the magical night.
For 2 miles about, that was how far it was from the hotel to the stadium, the Fiesta Bowl. And the crowd of Tennessee people in orange, there weren't just a line of 1 or 2 people along the street. I mean, it was just almost like the Vol Walk from the Sports Center to Neyland Stadium into the dressing room. Except this was 2 miles long, 2,000 miles from Knoxville, and here, as far as the eye could see, were people cheering Tennessee.
The Fiesta Bowl game against Florida State for the national championship would also be Ward and Anderson's last game together.
Back to throw, looking into the end zone, pass caught, 3, 2, 1, give him 6. Touchdown, Tennessee!
It's just not another game. It really wasn't just another game, but that was our approach.
Field is intercepted. Tennessee at the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Tennessee. D. Wayne Goodrich. Going to throw the ball long downfield for Fearless Bright. It is complete. He makes the catch at the 45. He's at the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. Just give it to him. Touchdown, Tennessee.
We probably played it down a little too much. That's the only thing I regret. That going into the game, I wanted to make certain that we did not get emotionally involved in the magnitude of the experience to where we were not objective and accurate in reporting the game.
You can count it down with us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The national champion is clad in big orange. Tennessee 23, Florida State 16.
When the game was over, even when we went down to interview Coach Fulmer, it was just another game. As the Volunteers win tonight over Florida State in Tempe, Arizona, by a score of 23-16. Thanks to all of you for being with us. Now, for the coach of the Volunteers, Philip Fulmer, this is John Ward saying so long, everybody, on this, the Vol Radio Network.
That's a wrap.
There was, however, another season to go before the final chapter in the broadcast career of John Ward could be written. Coming off the school's best season in over a decade, enthusiasm for Big Orange basketball had returned to the heady days of the early 1980s. The Vols suffered a couple of early season setbacks, but finally began to get things on track in the most unlikely of all places, Lexington, Kentucky. Tennessee hadn't beaten Kentucky in Lexington since 1979.
Turner almost walks, drives down deep, under he goes for the shot that is up and no good. Rebound Bradley, put back up, it's no good. Rebound Tennessee. It is over. It is over. It is over. Tennessee 47, Kentucky 46. It happened.
In one of the biggest stretch runs in school history, the Vols won 5 straight conference games. The team was in position to capture the SEC Eastern Division title. All the Vols had to do was beat Kentucky again in the last regular season game. In pregame ceremonies before his last broadcast on the University of Tennessee campus, Ward was once again honored. In a charged atmosphere reminiscent of the heydays at Stokely Athletic Center, the Vols defeated its biggest rival and won the SEC East.
Well, Tennessee wins the national championship in football, and this may not be the national championship, but believe you me, beating Kentucky twice in a single season in basketball is close. Kentucky with the basketball into Smith. Smith past the timeline. Down low he goes. The shot is up there. No good. This game is over. The SEC Eastern Division champion is clad in orange. Where have I heard that before?
Again, fate had smiled on Ward. The national championship in football, defeating arch-rival Kentucky twice in basketball, and winning the SEC Eastern Division basketball title. Even the most accomplished pundits would have been challenged to write a better ending. The Vols went on to advance to the second round of the NCAA tournament. As his final radio broadcast was coming to an end, Ward wrapped it up much like he had his previous 1,382 UT broadcasts.
10 days. The final score here is 81-51 as Southwest Missouri State wins over Tennessee. For the coach of the Volunteers, Jerry Green, and for your Vol Network staff from Charlotte, North Carolina, this is John Ward saying so long, everybody, as you listen to Tennessee basketball on the Vol Radio Network.
Finally, after 4 glorious decades, the voice went silent.
I'm a realist enough to know that, particularly in athletics, football and basketball, there is tradition, there are memories, but basically speaking, people now are concerned with what's going to happen, not what has happened. So I don't expect to be remembered as such. If indeed people would look back and say we enjoyed these years, that's what I want them to say. That we had some fun. We couldn't get to one game and it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, that we had to listen to the broadcast, that actually I sort of felt that we were there. In an overall standpoint, I hope that people will say, well, the broadcasts were objective, fair to both teams, entertaining, enjoyable, accurate, and maybe once in a while they threw in a little something special that we remember, a word here, a word there, a phrase here, a phrase there that we remember, and maybe we won't remember who said it, but we may remember what was said. And if that's what people remember, I'll be happy.
Seconds will tick down. There are now, ladies and gentlemen, 10 seconds to go. We're going to let you count it down as Tennessee will beat Alabama. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alabama 35-28. Pandemonium reigns. The goalposts are history. The north goalpost, I think, has just been snapped. Anyway, it's been broken off, and students of the University of Tennessee are carrying it the length of the field north to south. The fans are still here, standing and cheering. It has to be one of the great moments in Tennessee football history.
What means something is that people really, what we've done has meant something to some people. I hate to say that. It's a little boastful. But what we've done has meant something to people, or else they could not say what they say, what they have said, and what they have meant. And say enjoy life. I don't know how I can enjoy life more than what I have with broadcasting the games and meeting the fans and visiting with them. So I probably will not enjoy life as much. But there was one thing I think I've said. One thing I think I've said was, and I believe this, and this is why the decision was the proper one, to end the broadcast, in broadcasting the games. I would much rather quit 3 years too early than 1 second too late. And whenever the concentration and the desire and the love of preparation and travel begins to wane even a tenth of a percent, then I don't want to do them, because that's not right. And so what will happen now, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I'll miss broadcasting the games for sure. I'll miss the fans for sure. Nothing will replace that. Hopefully something almost as good will come along. If it doesn't, what more can you ask? 30 years of doing something that you love to do, and the response of the people for that, you know, most people don't have a year of that. So I'll have no regrets. No regrets. This is the way it should have been.
So many one-word descriptions you could use to sum up a figure who's got his place in Tennessee history in the 20th century. Compelling. John was a strong personality, and that came across on the air.
This was a man that had absolutely amazing ability to be a great sportscaster, radio play-by-play. Now, he was also very good at television play-by-play, but radio play-by-play is another breed of cat.
He almost is like a television camera on radio. He visualizes it and is so good at describing what he sees, you think you're watching the ball game.
As a fan who's away from the program again now, I'm sad because I'll miss him. And when I heard the news that he was leaving, I was like everybody else. It'll never be the same.
He's not just the best here, he's the best in the daggone world.
John, obviously, when you meet him the first time, comes across with tremendous energy, tremendous intelligence about what he's going to do, and he has tremendous decisiveness about what's going to happen.
Ward and I always went early. If it was a 3 o'clock game, we'd be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. If it was a night game, we'd be there before noon. I doubt that he's changed.
Anybody that knows John knows that he works hard at everything he does.
John demanded perfection, not only from himself, but from everybody associated with the broadcast.
He always tells the network crew is to be prepared and anticipate things that come out of the blue, out of the ordinary, that normally you wouldn't expect. And he had just got through talking to us about that on the pregame before a basketball broadcast. When the power goes out in the arena, complete pitch black, 30 seconds from him going on the air. And I could feel him turn to me during that time period and say, "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about."
He's always pretty superstitious, just like at this last basketball tournament we had. Mr. Bailoff accidentally left his hat that he wore into the arena. He left it in the press room. Well, he asked me to look for it the next day, but the day between games, and I looked all over the arena. I couldn't find it. And he just looked at me and said, "We don't find that hat. Our goose is cooked."
John was always ahead of his spotters. I mean, the spotter's just there to watch the ball game in case he needs you. He's normally ahead of you.
The fondest memories I have of John and Bill are traveling, doing the away games. We had great chemistry, and we really had a lot of fun together.
I think the one thing that you realize pretty quickly is that John Ward runs the broadcast. He knows everything that's going on. The first day I was ever on the Ball Network was when Tennessee played Iowa in the '87 Kickoff Classic. And of course, Tennessee won the ball game 23-22, and we're talking about the next game, which is a home game, And I said, and the Vols will be at home next weekend at Neyland Stadium. We go to commercial, everybody's thinking, I'm thinking, hey, I've done okay today. I was 19, almost 20, and I'm thinking this is going good. About this time through the cue speaker, you hear, "Tell Keith it's Neyland, not Neyland. It's Neyland like your knee."
If you really wanted to enjoy the game, the Vol Radio Network booth was not the place to watch it from.
John could create a really intense atmosphere, and we were doing a game at Legion Field in Birmingham, and we'd had some technical problems, so everyone was on edge. Tim Berry, our engineer, had felt the wrath, and sure enough, in the fourth quarter, Ward goes to cue Bill Anderson for a comment, and you don't hear Bill Anderson. So we all turn to look at Tim Berry to see what the problem is, and instead of Tim being focused on the game with his hands on the audio board, he instead has them wrapped around a jumbo Frankfurter, and he's not paying any attention at all, and Ward just loses it. But Ward even starts laughing so hysterically that he loses his place in the ball game and almost missed the next play.
If you were listening to the radio broadcast, you would think it was a very calm and relaxed atmosphere, but in reality, it was very intense.
The tradition in those days was to Ed Huster and John Ward and John Majors and myself to play tennis on Friday mornings, particularly for home games. And I always thought it was a bad omen if Majors lost, so I can't say that I really tried that hard, but Ward and Majors went at it. If they were on opposite sides of doubles, usually it was Huster and me, or Huster and Ward against Majors and me, and if Majors was on my team, I wanted to win because I thought that was a good omen, and John just battled him like it was Wimbledon or the U.S. Open.
When you're on the phone with John, whenever he's through speaking to you, that's when the conversation ends. And he may just hang up. He may go into a whole soliloquy. He may, who knows, but when it's over, it's over. Just forget it.
The pitch to Morgan. Morgan at the corner. Fight. Give him 6. Touchdown, Tennessee. Moore pulling the ball down at the 3. Moore to the 5, to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, to the 25, to the 30, to the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20. Give him 6 points. Touchdown, Tennessee, on a kickoff return by Decatur, Tennessee's Gary Moore. Back to throw. He's going to throw a fly batter downfield, racing after the ball. Hancock takes it at the 10, 5, yes, third, 3. Kick is up. The kick is good. No, it is no good. It is no good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 60 yards. Jeff Powell. Touchdown. Big Island. Handoff tailback. Works left side. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him 6. Hubert Simpson has 4. 4 touchdowns for Simpson. Testaverde in trouble, and Testaverde is going to be sacked. Testaverde is sacked. Morgan backing up. Wants the ball. Will make the catch. Needs a block. Gets one. 40, 45, 50. Will he go all the way? Yes, sir. 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Give him 6. Touchdown, Tennessee. 63-yard punt return by Stanley Morgan.
There's been one constant in Tennessee football history since 1968. John Ward and Bill Anderson have called games on the Vol Radio Network. And this is the walk they take every Saturday before a home game to the Vol Radio Network booth, where they've called the action of so many great games and so many great players in UT history.
For John Ward, the appointment as play-by-play man on the Vol Radio Network had been a long time in the making. A Knoxville native, Ward attended the University of Tennessee for both his undergraduate and law degrees. Surprisingly enough, his start in broadcasting came while working as a newspaper reporter.
I worked at the Knoxville Journal, started as a copy boy, then they asked me to work in the sports department as a writer. I covered high school games. Probably, I was the low man, I don't remember how many we had on the staff, the low man, so I did high school games. And the high school games in those days were broadcast, and it so happened that the manager of the radio station was the son of the editor of the newspaper. And so he came down, this is the way it happened, he came down, I had done fraternity games at school, at the university, just make-up games on tape, just playing games, you know, whatever. So I'd had a little exposure to it. So he came down to the sports department, he said, our sports announcer has a job, and he left town. We've got this game sold tonight. Who can we have to broadcast the game? I said, well, I'm covering the game for the Journal. I'll just broadcast it. It's exactly what I said. I thought he was kidding. Got to the game, and they, you know, radio people get there an hour before. Newspaper people get there 5 minutes before the game. I got there 5 minutes before the game, and the engineer, you're supposed to broadcast the game. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah. Guy Smith said you're supposed to broadcast the game. So I broadcast the game. And then for about 2 years, I'd cover the game for the Journal and broadcast the game. That was basketball, but I did football as well. And I would come back and write the story after broadcasting the game on local radio. That's how I got started.
Ward would spend several years broadcasting high school football, but he focused most of his energies into the advertising business. He dabbled in broadcasting merely as a hobby. He began broadcasting UT basketball in 1965 and was selling advertising on the coaches' shows when athletics director Bob Woodruff called him in the spring of 1968.
Coach Woodruff called me and he said, we're going to have a new football announcer, but are you interested? I said, yes, I would be interested in that. And he said, would this interfere with your television, selling the television show for Coach Dickey? That's the first question he asked me, not whether I wanted to do the games. Will this interfere on selling the TV show for Coach Dickey? I said, no, it would help it. And so he said, okay, would you do the games? I said, yes. And that was in the spring, probably about, I don't remember the date, but it was not more than 2 or 3 weeks before the spring football game.
So John Ward became the 8th man to broadcast Tennessee football when the September opener rolled around with Georgia in 1968. But he would need a partner, a color commentator to join him in the Vol Network booth. There was no clear-cut choice. Several names were being thrown around, including that of former Vol wingback Bill Anderson. Anderson was a star at Tennessee from 1955 through 57. He was the team's co-captain during his senior year. After he left Tennessee, Anderson joined the Washington Redskins, where he made that NFL team with a little help from a fellow UT grad, Doug Atkins.
Of course, everybody knows who Big Doug is, and at that time, he pretty well ruled the roost in the NFL. No one could handle him, and he ran over everybody, and that he wanted to at least. And I weighed about 195 pounds, and they had me playing offensive end in an unbalanced line, and when they go the other direction, that put me to block him, which was almost impossible. So the first play, we got down to the last game, and they were going to make the final cut, and there wasn't but 2 or 3 rookies left, and so they started me to see what, give me a good test, I guess. And first play, we lined up. Fortunately, it went out the other side, and I didn't have to do much. I came back by Doug, and I told him, I said, look, You know, I'm trying to make this football team. You leave me alone. he says, well, don't worry, Rookie, I'll take care of you, because I'd known him before while I was in school playing here. And he did. I'd block him, he'd fall down, and he'd lay there and say, well, how's that? You think that'll look all right? And that kind of thing. And in the meantime, when Don Bowl, a big tackle we had, about a 7-year veteran there, would try to block him, well, he just ran all over him. It just knocked him sideways. And so I caught a few passes and so forth, and made the team, made the cut. So the next Monday morning, we had the meeting there and started watching the film. Before Coach Kaharick, Joe Kaharick was the coach of the Redskins then, and before they turned on the film, he just jumped all over Don Bowl. I mean, just chewed him out something fierce. You don't block him all day. You can't block Atkins, and you're 280 pounds. You stink. He said, I'm going to turn the film on you, and you watch a 190-pound rookie block Doug Atkins. And it looked great. And, you know, Doug was going down. And so when the film was over, of course, Don Bowl kept looking over there at me. When the film was over, I went to get dressed, and he come over there and just grabbed me by the arm, jerked me right up out of my seat. He said, there's no way you can block Doug Atkins. There's a deal going on. You two guys are from Tennessee. There had to be a deal. And I said, no. I tell you, the secret to blocking Doug Atkins is you just got to get to him quick.
Anderson spent 6 years with the Washington Redskins, retiring in 1964. He came back to Tennessee and joined Doug Dickey's first coaching staff with the Volunteers. He coached the ends for 1 year and then realized the coaching profession simply wasn't for him. Bill Anderson returned to the NFL and was traded from the Washington Redskins to the Green Bay Packers. In his final year, 1966, he played with Vince Lombardi's great team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl I.
Not everybody has that opportunity. I was very fortunate. You know, I got traded there, and I hope I contributed a little bit to it, but there were great football players there, and along with the coaches and the organization, and everything was outstanding, and it was a very good experience for me.
After playing in Super Bowl I, Bill Anderson finally did retire from the NFL and returned back to Knoxville, this time to go into business. When Bill returned to Knoxville in 1968, the University of Tennessee was still looking for a partner for John Ward in the Vol Network booth.
My first thought was to get a professional announcer. So we talked to some people about that. We talked to 2 and maybe 3 other former football players. Bill was a close friend of Coach Dickey because he had coached for him, and Coach Dickey had great respect for his ability. And so it sort of just wandered, and Bill will say that it just happened. It just sort of happened. Finally, Woodruff said, who have you picked? And this would be like a month before the season. Who did you pick? And I said, I didn't know I was supposed to pick. And he said, well, who have you decided on? And so Coach Dickey was in the meeting, and he said, well, what about Bill Anderson? Let's just go with Bill Anderson. I said, that's fine with me. Let's get Bill Anderson. In essence, what I said was, let's get somebody. And so we got Bill Anderson.
How I got involved with the Vol Network is a short story, but it happened. Woodruff made it happen. Coach Woodruff, I think. He called and asked me if I'd like to be interested in doing it. And I said, well, I don't know. I've never thought about it. Just out of the blue, I got the phone call, and he said, well, we've got a couple other fellas that I've been talking to. I just wondered if you'd be interested. And I said, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. So I thought about it, and I never heard any more from him. And I had made up my mind. I didn't want to get involved in that. I didn't think I had time and so forth. And next thing I knew, it came out in the paper that John and I were doing it. So, you know, that's the way it happens. So I told him I'd take a shot at it and see what happened, and it's been going on for a long time.
This is John Ward and Bill Anderson's vantage point high above Shields-Watkins Field. This is the spot where they've made so many memorable calls in Tennessee football history. John and Bill are celebrating their 25th year on the Vol Network, and so we thought it might be fun to let them reflect back on some of their favorite games down through the years, and a good place to start. The 1968 home opener, their first game against Georgia. The 1968 season opener with Georgia would bring a lot of firsts. Tennessee would suit up its first black player, receiver Lester McLean. Tennessee and Georgia played the first game ever on artificial turf in college football. And of course, there was the new broadcast team, John Ward and Bill Anderson. How did those two get ready for the game? They practiced in Bill Anderson's basement, calling the action of pro football games on TV with the sound turned down.
And I was very nervous about that. I think probably more so than going to play in the Super Bowl, really, because that's something I was on new territory. You know, it's not something I'd never done before, and so you don't know what's going to come out of it. And I wanted to try to do a decent job, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do, to be honest with you. So I just jumped in, and away we went.
We were prepared. We had worked hard. We had gotten to know each other, Bill and I. We had gotten to know the teams, the players, the background. Had a good staff, spotter, stat man, statistics man. That's really where it starts, as Bill would say. I mean, we keep the score, but the other people, you've been involved in that, so Bob Kessling knows that the people around us really feed us the information or give us the guidance to do the game. But as far as I wasn't nervous. I'm always tense. I wasn't nervous. And I wasn't nervous about Bill, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, Georgia was perfectly honest with Tennessee. The Bulldogs didn't want to play on the Volunteers' new tartan surface. As a matter of fact, Bulldog Athletic Director Joel Eaves even threatened to have his team boycott the game. But Georgia showed up, and it was a whale of a ball game, a 17-all tie that has never been forgotten.
They were favored, I believe, over Tennessee, and there's been a lot of controversy going on over the new surface on the football field and some other things, and so it was a big win or a big tie for Tennessee.
John, the game was basically a struggle for Tennessee all day long.
Tennessee got off early and played well. Tennessee, of course, was the defending SEC champion in 1968. They won in 1967, the SEC championship, but had lost the quarterback who had led them there. And Bubba White basically was playing quarterback, had a lot of experience. But anyway, Tennessee got up early, then got behind, and Georgia controlled the game. Tennessee really didn't do much offensively until the last drive. I do remember that it happened very quickly, and that I think it got Georgia a little out of sync in the fact that Tennessee, with a little time to go on their own 20-yard line, people said, well, you know, they're going to protect or whatever, the prevent deal, whatever. And Tennessee moved the ball right down and then went for the last touchdown, which was caught by Gary Chris, who was a Tennessee receiver. And then, how I remember, the extra point, they said, well, they got to go for two. They're down 17-15, got to go for two, and it just happened. I'm sure they called the play, I'm sure they huddled and all that, but it just happened. And then all of a sudden, here, the Ken DeLong, who was the younger brother of Steve DeLong, made the catch, and the game was over, and it was over. And it was 17-17. It was a very strange feeling. The game, all of the points, those last 8 points, scored after there was no time on the clock, which may have happened before. I don't remember. I'm sure it has, but I've never remembered that. Both scores after the game was over. Of course, the play got underway before the clock ended. Very unusual finish. And I'm sure people were excited, but I don't remember that. I remember only 17-17, everybody left.
Pitch will go to the tailback, Webb, 10, Webb 5, Webb 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him a big touchdown. Chuck Webb, Tennessee.
Next on John and Bill's favorite list, we move forward 21 years to a night in Pasadena, California. This game would be significant for years to come. Tennessee, fresh off an unimpressive win against Colorado State, was taking on 6th-ranked UCLA at the Rose Bowl. The Volunteers went to the West Coast knowing they had some talent, particularly at running back in Reggie Cobb and Chuck Webb. But not much else was known about those Volunteers. Not much until Tennessee crushed the Bruins 24-6.
The whole team came of age at that game. Getting on the plane, coming back, you felt the chemistry had come together. That was the key game in this whole era, I think, from 89, 90, 91, no question. That was the key game. Well, the key play in the game, really, when in hindsight, would be that UCLA elected to go for first down on a 4th and short situation, and Tennessee stopped them. And I remember that Tennessee had a good contingent of fans. That's the big place. The Rose Bowl's a big place, obviously. Tennessee had a good, I don't know how many, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 probably, and they were down to our left. And they were noisy, and the UCLA crowd was not that into it, really. So the Tennessee fans, with that defensive stop, with that stop on the 4th down, the fans just got into the game and sort of, to me, set the tempo, the tenor of the game from that moment on. And I sort of got the feeling UCLA fans were looking like this and say, I can't believe how much noise is coming from this little number of people. And I think that translated out to the players. And Tennessee then went and won the game, and really in decisive fashion, to be honest with you. Tennessee beat them badly.
Yes, no question. Big day. Chuck Webb, right away, what a day he had. Cobb had a good day too, but Chuck Webb, over 100 yards, wasn't it? Something like that. He ran for 134 yards against a good defensive football team.
It was a great night at the Rose Bowl, a special night for the Big Orange and their fans. A moment at the game's end signified the magnitude of this Tennessee victory.
As the fans and the players down to our left are cheering each other. What a moving moment this one is. Bill Anderson, the fans get the acknowledgement they should receive. They stayed behind this team.
Never forget it. Never absolutely forget it. Whether it was planned or not, I don't know. The feeling I had when the players came out and jumped up over the retaining wall, shaking hands with the fans, to me that was totally spontaneous by the players and by the fans. The players had interpreted the response of the fans, small in number in a 103,000-seat stadium, but loud and involved and committed, and they felt it. No question, they felt it. And I think they rode on top of that, and at the end of the game, their first thought, I'm sure, was to say, we have won, and have the team response as a team. And then almost all of them said, the fans did this. And they turned and just ran down. I'll never forget that moment. Never forget that moment.
In 1971, unbeaten Penn State traveled to Knoxville for a season-ending game of the Volunteers. The highly favored Nittany Lions boasted a talented tandem running back in future NFL greats Lydell Mitchell and Frankel Harris. But Tennessee countered with a superb defense, a big play defense, led that day by Bobby Majors.
The Majors family came back for a reunion with Tennessee fans and were introduced, all of the Majors family, with the exception, of course, of the late Bill Majors, who had been so much a part of Tennessee football over the years. And I remember that. And I also remember that Bobby Majors, who was a defensive player but a very offensive player too. He's still a little offensive. But anyway, he was a great defensive football player in runbacks. Just had that knack. And so the opening kickoff, Tennessee said, well, there's no way we can beat Penn State. No way. What happened? He brought the kickoff back, and that absolutely flipped it. And all of a sudden, Tennessee, from then on, made big play after big play. Lack of concentration, I'm sure, by Penn State. Conrad Graham recovered a fumble in midair, went 1.5 miles for a touchdown. Majors punt returns. Jackie Walker returns interception. Just Tennessee absolutely blasted Penn State.
The whole defensive setup, the defense won the game. That was basically it. And Majors, Bobby had, as John said, an outstanding day. But you know, talking about him being an offensive player, I thought it was a big day. He's got his family there and everything, and what a day he had for himself. But I've been associated with not with all of them, but with 3 of the Majors players, of course, John and Bill and Bob. And they may not have been the greatest athletes in the world as far as speed and that type of thing, but all 3 of those boys had a great feel and a knack for making the right move and doing the right thing in football. And I think that's what's made them outstanding players, that they just not necessarily can jump the highest or throw the ball the furthest or that type of thing, but that was kind of bred in them, I suppose, or at least they were in a football family growing up, and they had a great feel for the game. And Majors, what a day he had that day.
Penn State was scheduled to play Tennessee in Knoxville again in 1972, but the Nittany Lions were reluctant to come back due to the heat. So athletics director Bob Woodruff went to work on a deal to bring Penn State back in 1972. To do so, he had to have lights for Neyland Stadium. So he went to work on UT president Ed Bowling.
The president of the university at that time was Dr. Ed Bowling, and he and athletics director Woodruff went to a meeting somewhere. I don't really know where it was. It might have been an NCAA meeting. My recollection is it was in Philadelphia. That may be wrong. Anyway, Woodruff made the arrangements for their travel. So they went to the meeting, and then they went back to the hotel. And Dr. Bowling's told me this story. So normally, they would have separate rooms, right? President, athletic director. They checked in, and they were in the same room. Woodruff had put them in the same room. Well, of course, he could say, we've got to save money and everything, which he did. But that wasn't the reason. They got to the room, and so Dr. Bowling said, well, surely we can have a separate room. Well, I'll just authorize we can do that. Woodruff got on the phone. He was talking to the athletic director at Penn State, whose name escapes me. I think it was Chekhov, but I may be wrong. Anyway, and Woodruff was on the phone, and Dr. Bowling said, we've got to get another room. Just a minute, I'm talking to the athletic director at Penn State. Yeah, we can play the first game. I think we can get it on TV. If we have lights, I'm sure we can get it on TV if it's a night game. And Dr. Bowling's and Woodruff is carrying on this conversation. And so Woodruff said, just a minute. And Dr. Bowling says, we got to make arrangements, get off the phone and get me another room. And Woodruff says, Penn State will come to Tennessee again next year for the opening game if we have lights and can play them at night on TV. Get the other room. Can we have lights on TV and we can be on TV? Yeah, we can have lights. And so Tennessee put up the lights. And so Penn State played Tennessee both years in Knoxville. Now tell me anybody else can pull that deal. Huh?
So Woodruff got the lights for Neyland Stadium. It was the first night game in Tennessee football history, and the Volunteers beat Penn State 28-21.
John and Bill have had the opportunity to watch so many great players from their vantage point here high atop Neyland Stadium. But there's one player that kind of stands out, a magic name, Condredge Holloway. And his star was shining bright in the 1974 UCLA game.
No question about it. Bill and I were not broadcasting the 1965 game, and we're talking about our favorite game. So the 65 game would have to stick out as the great Tennessee-UCLA game. But during the past quarter century, this game is remembered because of Condredge Holloway's return. I don't really think it was orchestrated, although some people might say it was. But he was injured. Tennessee got up early. Then Condredge Holloway was injured. Went to the dressing room, probably had x-rays, might have even gone to the hospital for x-rays, I'm not sure. Came back third quarter and walked around the north end of the field to come to the west sideline where Tennessee was because the game was in progress. He just couldn't run across the field. And the moment he came, wearing number 7, people, it wasn't a wave, that may be where the wave started, because the crowd just rode him right around the field and it came to the bench. Tennessee was by that time behind. And Holloway, after 2 or 3 series, went back into the game, drove Tennessee down, and then came out around to the right side, went down to the end, fighting for the corner, dives in, Tennessee scored. Down 17-16. He's hurt, have to take him out. Rather than go for 2, they go for 1 of the tie because Holloway's not available.
Bill, you remember the dive, the play?
Yeah, I can remember that pretty well, Bobby. He, as I mentioned earlier, I think he was an outstanding football player at Tennessee, and especially with the team that he had in front of him, his offensive team. There wasn't that many. It was not a strong team, and he had to carry the load pretty much by himself. So when he got hurt and went out in a fans were certainly glad to see him coming back, you know, that he was able to go. And they expected him to score. When he goes back in there, they expected things to happen because he had a knack of making things happen. Big plays on his own, breaking loose and doing those things. And if they had had more players and more ability, I guess, on the offensive side of the ball, he probably wouldn't have done as many things as he did, but as the situation was, he had to do it. And as a result, he performed outstanding.
One game that stands out for John and Bill, the 1979 visit from Notre Dame. If you remember, in 1978, Tennessee went to South Bend, played well, but lost 31-14 to Notre Dame. So all of Big Orange Country was rocking when the Irish came to town the following year.
The very fact that you're playing Notre Dame in Knoxville was a great moment. Notre Dame has no question, the greatest tradition in college football, and probably always will. They do it first class, and they've always done it that way. Anyway, Notre Dame comes to town. Tennessee people, how could Rutgers beat Tennessee? Homecoming game, by the way. But Tennessee might have been thinking past Rutgers. You always, I don't know whether you do that, Bill knows more about players. But anyway, Tennessee was ready, particularly Hubert Simpson, was ready for Notre Dame. They had a great team, a great individual running back in Vegas Ferguson, and so maybe Simpson was going to say, I'll show him. Tennessee stopped Ferguson just short of a touchdown, maybe. Anyway, he didn't score, didn't get any points on it, and Tennessee from that moment just took over the ball game, and Simpson went 100-some yards, I don't know how many.
Olszewski has his team of the I formation this side. Handoff tailback, race left side, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him 6. Hubert Simpson has 4. 4 touchdowns for Simpson. Tennessee 39, Notre Dame 12.
Tremendous game and a great moment for Tennessee fans to beat Notre Dame in Knoxville. Made them forget Rutgers a little while.
Of course, Johnny had a difficult time, I think, when he came here. He struggled early on, and when he came here, I'm going to tell you, Tennessee was very short-handed as far as athletes were concerned. And so it was a difficult time, but that was a big win, and it seemed to maybe say, you know, this thing's starting to turn a little bit and go in the right direction.
In 1985, Auburn was the #1 team in college football when it came calling in Neyland Stadium. Tennessee that day was up to the challenge. Great defense by the Volunteers put the clamps on eventual Heisman Trophy winner Bo Jackson.
I think that's probably the only time in his life he got shut down cold, because he could make things happen. What a great athlete he was. And he just ran over people, great speed, power, and the whole 9 yards. Tennessee's defensive game plan was zeroed in on Jackson. I don't think there was any question about that, and they really punished him.
They hit him time after time after time, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And, you know, I think I've heard a lot of people criticize maybe Bo Jackson a little bit. I'm sure you've heard that he didn't want any more, that kind of thing. I don't think that's right. I think the coach probably did a smart thing by taking him out. He had really been punished, and it was obvious he wasn't going anywhere. And the game, Tennessee had it under control, and I think they probably took him out to keep him from getting hurt or something. I think it was a smart move myself.
The Tennessee offense was as impressive as the defense. Tony Robinson threw 4 touchdown passes and made big play after big play. Tennessee was on its way to a magical season.
Robinson sets his team in the I formation. Robinson fakes, play action, long pass down into the end zone. The man is there. Give him 6. Touchdown, Tennessee! Robinson throws. McGee catches. It was there all the way. McGee had him by 5 yards, and Robinson, Bill Anderson, right on the dollar mark.
Laid it up perfect, but the key to it all, he had time to stand in there. Good job of the offensive line, too, John.
Tennessee emerged in that game with a lot of people. Tony Robinson came in as quarterback and was very impressive. A lot of receivers played in the game. All in all, it was an outstanding performance by Tennessee, ready for the game. Maybe defense set the tone. I think Bill's right. The defense set the tone, but then the offense picked right up and just matured. And it was a very memorable game.
In 1970, Tennessee had a very good football team. Some have said maybe the best ever.
It's difficult to pick out best teams, I think. If you're going to compare that team with the teams we have today, they might get beat. But for their time, and I think it's one of Tennessee's better football teams.
That 1970 Tennessee team would go 11-1 under first-year coach Bill Battle, who happened to be an Alabama graduate. And when it was time for Tennessee and Alabama to meet, there were plenty of questions.
In those days, the university had a reception for the visiting team at the faculty club. And Coach Bryant, I don't know that head coaches came, probably most of the time they did, but for this particular game on Friday night, Coach Bryant came with his staff. And Bill Battle was there prior to that, and Coach Bryant came in, as Bill would know, you know, a tremendous personality and just sort of because an aura around him. And I was standing next to Battle when they came up, and Coach Bryant came up and shook hands with Bill. They didn't say a thing about the game, but you know that's all they were thinking about. And Bill said, "How are you doing, Coach Bryant?" And Coach Bryant said, "How are you doing, Bill?" That was a very tense moment and a very memorable moment to me. You knew that Bryant wanted to kill Tennessee, and you knew that Battle was maybe a little uncertain, but he wanted to win the game. Tennessee won 24-0. Dominated the game start to finish, no question about it. Dominated the game start to finish. Tennessee fans were totally uncertain about a young defensive secondary, particularly with this great list of passes, the greatest in the country. Hickson, as I remember, had been the #1 passer the previous year in the country. What's Tennessee going to do? New coach, new defense, everything else, untried secondary. And it all came to a head with 8 interceptions against Alabama, and they went on and set a school record with interceptions that year, 36, I believe, maybe 38 counting the game at the Sugar Bowl, which they don't count in the statistics. So Tennessee's play against Alabama was a big victory.
A little inside information now. There's some items that John has every single broadcast that are a necessity. First, his spotting board. He keeps all the players' news and notes about each team on these spotting boards during the game. Cough drops. He's used the same brand since 1968. He also has mouthwash to keep his throat loosened for every single game. And, of course, the biggest item, the famed blue towel he wears around his neck for each broadcast.
I wear a towel basically for therapeutic reasons. It is not a corny, I don't wear the towel because it's tradition. No, I do in a certain degree. But it's therapeutic. And the reason is that it started was we were playing it was a basketball game, 1967. Tennessee played at Mississippi State for the SEC basketball championship. 3 teams had come to the final night of the season with a chance to win the SEC championship. Florida, coached by Tommy Bartley, a good friend of mine, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee. If Tennessee won at Mississippi State, Tennessee would be the outright champion with a record of 15-3. The other teams would be 14-4. The game went triple overtime. It was played in an old gym, and our broadcast position was right back against the wall, and behind us was a window. And the window, though closed, had a draft. The wind was coming through, and it was getting to my throat. And in those days, I worked with the late Lowell Blanchard, and I told him as we went into the third overtime, I said, "There's no way, my throat's gone. I can't make it." So he went down to the Tennessee bench and got a towel and brought it back and put it around like a scarf. And it warmed my throat. And I made it through the broadcast. And from that point on, I've always worn a towel, not to wear a towel, but because it keeps my throat loose.
If Tennessee would have lost the game, though, would you still be wearing the towel?
You're right. Never again.
John Ward has coined many phrases that are commonplace with Tennessee fans, like "give 'em 6" and "bottom." They'll live forever, even if John didn't plan them that way.
The phrases and so forth just happen. I don't really know. It was never planned. When I did high school games, I might have had phrases. I don't remember, to be perfectly honest with you. But I just did the games. But then when I started doing basketball and said bottom, I don't remember ever saying that, or why I ever said that, I don't know. Certainly I probably was copying from somebody else. Why it ever happened, I don't know. And the only reason it became a part of the games is because people played it back to me, not because I played it to them. When people came to me and said, bottom, or there goes bottom, or he said bottom, then I said, well, they are relating to that. So I used it. And the same happened in football. When I said 5-4, I remember it was the first season, 1968, and the reason when I said 5-4-3-2-1-6, that's what I said. Why? Don't know. Wasn't planned, just happened. And Bill Anderson and I went to the Cotton Bowl, did not broadcast the game that year. It was on whatever radio, but we went together and sat in the stands, and somebody sitting in front of me in the Tennessee area of the Cotton Bowl said 5-4-3-2-1-6. And I looked at Bill, and Bill didn't remember that I had said that. But when that happened, I said, well, those people relate to that. That's how all phrases develop. Yeah, I don't sit around thinking up things. It's just what comes off, and then if people play it back, then, okay, they enjoy that, I'll use it.
It's been called the greatest comeback in Tennessee football history. A game and a day that will never be forgotten, not simply for how it happened, but where it happened. On November the 9th, 1991, Tennessee went to South Bend to play Notre Dame and found itself down 31-7 in the second quarter. And the Irish were getting ready to make it even worse.
Snap down. Kick is up. Blocked. Chasing after the ball. Who comes out of there with it? Tennessee will have possession. They're going to run with the football as it's picked away at the 25 to the 30, to the 35 to the 40, breaks to the outside to the 45 to the 50, to the 45 to the 40. Floyd Miley can fly. Floyd Miley has the ball at the 15, at the 10, at the 5. He has gone all the way. Touchdown, Big Orange.
I thought Tennessee could compete with Notre Dame going into the game. They had played very well against Notre Dame in Knoxville the year before. But the way the game went, Notre Dame totally dominated Tennessee early. And it was, I remember we would look at each other and sort of felt, no, what's going to happen here? 31-7 as was the score, and it was just going to be an absolute debacle from Tennessee's perspective. Then, at the end of the half, blocked field goal attempt, and Miley picks the ball up and goes. Gave a little heart, but really still 31-14. Notre Dame had dominated the game. They're going to win pretty easy.
Yeah, I think, well, it wasn't necessarily the score as much as it was the way they had dominated the game, because their running game, they were just powering over us, and we couldn't even seem to get them slowed down. They're picking up 8, 10 yards, 12, 15 a clip down the field, and it didn't look like there's much hope for getting that problem solved.
What changed it at halftime?
Well, I know what Tennessee did. They made up their mind they were going to stop the run, and they jumped everybody up on the line of scrimmage, everybody, and they went after the run. And be honest with you, Bob, again, I was surprised that Notre Dame didn't start throwing the ball, but they continued to try to run until late in the ball game. Then they finally realized they need to throw the ball, and as soon as they started throwing it, boom, 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 they started moving the ball again. But I think they might have choked up a little bit, quite frankly, because they didn't. We threw everybody up on the line of scrimmage and went after the run, and they were determined they were going to run it down the throats, I guess, and they just wasn't able to do it.
And now Tennessee goes to the power I set, trailing 31-14. 7:05 to go in the third quarter. Tennessee, the handoff is fake. Kelly rolls left, looks to throw into the end zone. Give him 6. Touchdown, Von Reeves.
Tennessee began to move the ball consistently and used a lot of clock, but stayed in the game plan and then worked its way down to a chance to go ahead and ran, as I recall, a perfect play, a perfectly executed play, screen out to the left to Aaron Hayden, and as I recall, nobody touched him, maybe. I don't think anybody came close to him.
Notre Dame jumps into that three-man defensive line, but here comes that safety blitz. Back to throw is Kelly. Kelly throws the ball full down at the 35, down to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, down to the 5, down to the 4, down to the 3, down to the 2, down to the end zone. Touchdown, Aaron Hayden, with a sensational call as Tennessee anticipates the blitz.
I almost saw it coming. I don't know football, but I almost saw it coming. And when he came out and I sort of followed him, I said, this is it. And it was. Nobody came close, as I remember.
Yeah, nobody touched him, I don't think. You know, that was, John, that's another thing. I think that was the big difference in that they didn't panic. You know, they're way down, and Coach Foreman with the offense, they hung in there with their game plan and just continued to pick away at it and didn't get desperate and start trying to get it all back in one shot. And as a result, it turned out for them.
With Tennessee leading 35-34 and just seconds remaining, it came down to Rob Leonard and a 26-yard field goal to win it for Notre Dame.
The Volunteers have no timeouts, neither does Notre Dame. 4 seconds remain in the game. Holding will be Sexton. Snapping will be Johnson. Attempting the field goal, it will be right at 27 yards. This will be Rob Leonard. The kick is up. The kick is good. No, it is no good. It is no good. It is no good.
I remember I said it's good. And then my first reaction was to look to Bill Anderson, who is to my left. At the Notre Dame game, the Tennessee's coaching box, where the coaches in the box call the plays, they were sitting right beside you, right beyond you. And the first thing I saw was not Bill Anderson, but I saw Philip Fulmer grab David Cutcliffe, put his arms around him. Then I looked back and said, the referee motioned wrong. No, I made the mistake, but the referee gave me the indication. But my first reaction was, Anderson, so close, Fulmer, Cutcliffe, Tennessee wins, and it was a great, great victory.
Well, in your defense, though, John, I'd have to say I thought the thing was good, too. I'll be honest. That was an unusual. Lincoln came across there. At first, I thought my first feeling was it's blocked. But and then all of a sudden, late, the ball come out of there, and from the angle we were looking at it, I thought it went right through the middle, and I was as surprised as anybody.
Tennessee beats Notre Dame 35-34. The Volunteers go home victorious.
All the Tennessee-Alabama games are significant, but the 1982 game was special for all Tennessee fans because the Volunteers tried to break an 11-game losing streak to the tie.
Football dressing room to the west sideline. The band is there. There are thousands of orange balloons as well. And now as Tennessee comes onto the field, it's football time in Tennessee.
Tennessee had lost 11 straight games since the victory in 1970 and had come close a couple times, really, to winning in that. Keep in mind that during that period, however, Alabama didn't lose to many people in the Southeastern Conference. Tennessee wasn't the only team that wasn't beating Alabama as they won championship after championship. Anyway, they came to Knoxville, and people, I think, weren't confident at all. And sometimes when the fans are not confident and the team gets into the game, that's what makes it more memorable than if they're favored. And Tennessee was not favored.
Back to throw Cockrell. Cockrell looking. Cockrell's going to throw a bomb downfield to Willie Goff. This one will be touchdown! Big arm! Touchdown to Goff!
This game was remembered, I remember it as a great football game because Tennessee did come from behind, scored 22 straight points, executed well, great individual efforts by Coleman, by Cockrell, by the defensive unit from time to time. It was a high-scoring game.
Catching them, they have called plays that have popped open. The draw has been an extremely big play. Coleman not necessarily having all that much room to run in there, but he's done some running inside on his own, breaking some tackles and picking up some crucial first down.
The ball's to the line. It will be for Tennessee first down and 10. Cockrell handoff, left side Coleman. Gets to the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him 6. Touchdown, Big Orange! The crowd tells you as Chuck Coleman tops it on the play that Bill Anderson just alluded to. But the big block was thrown by William Goff on the corner. And it was Chuck Coleman who goes 34 yards on a draw. And Tennessee leads Alabama by a score of 33-21 with 7 minutes and 21 seconds left to go in the football game.
but particularly at the end, it was a defensive play by Mike Terry when Alabama got within 35-28. They were going for the touchdown. I know what people were saying. They're going to score. It's going to be 35-34. They're going to go for 2. They're going to make it. It's going to be 36-35, and it'll be 12 straight years. But Mike Terry went up into the air and intercepted the pass in the end zone at the end of the game, and Tennessee beat Alabama 35-28. Great moment. Great moment.
Back to throw is Lewis. Lewis looking, being pressured, pass down into the end zone. It is intercepted, Tennessee. Intercepted on the deflection by Mike Terry. 17 seconds to go, and Mike Terry intercepts the pass in the end zone on the deflection. And the crowd goes berserk.
Of course, anytime you play Alabama, you know, and you've had such a frustrating time, and then all of a sudden you do something you're certainly not expected to do and play an outstanding game, it really gives, you know, everybody's kind of maybe dumbfounded. You sit there, well, you know, you don't know what's happened here. It's something you're surprised, but I don't recall doing anything other than I probably shut my mic off and yelled a little bit or something. But
Tennessee was not expected to win. The fans were there. They wanted, they hoped and everything, but, you know, it's going to happen again. And then Tennessee got behind, came back, really played well. Tennessee really played very well as a team in that football game. Played certainly better than they'd been playing that year. And then it got to the end with a chance, as I said, that Alabama to win. But Tennessee came up with the big play that fans had come to expect. Alabama would have the big play to turn the corner. No, Tennessee had the big play, and then everybody probably went and then exploded. And down came the goalposts and everything else in sight.
The seconds will tick down. There are now, ladies and gentlemen, 10 seconds to go. We're going to let you count it down as Tennessee will beat Alabama. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Final score, Tennessee 35, Alabama 28. Tennessee beats Alabama 35-28. Pandemonium reigns. The goalposts are history. The north goalpost, I think, has just been snapped. Anyway, it's been broken off, and students of the University of Tennessee are carrying it the length of the field north to south. The fans are still here standing and cheering. It has to be one of the great moments in Tennessee football history.
I'll never forget that Majors, I'm sure he was hauled out by his players. I don't remember that, but I do remember in my mind the picture of his leaning. Yes, he was on their shoulder. He leaned down, and Bryant was there to shake his hand. That happened to be Coach Bryant's final year against Tennessee. And they shook hands, and what they said, I don't know. John has probably told me that I don't remember. But that was a very memorable moment for me.
In reviewing John Ward and Bill Anderson's quarter century as Tennessee's football broadcasters, it was difficult for them to pick their 10 favorite games. But here's some other favorites. In 1973, 16-14 win over Kentucky, which saw Wildcat kicker Ron Steele fall short on a last-minute field goal attempt that would have won it for the Wildcats. Tennessee rallied for a 21-all tie with Vanderbilt in 1974. Larry Severs made this dramatic 2-point reception just seconds from the end of the game. Wins over Alabama in 1983, 84, and 85 all could have made it.
He pitches to the tailback. He's at the 40. He's at the 45. He's at the 50. He's at the 45. He's at the 40. He's at the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Jonathan Jones. Johnny Jones, a punt for Tennessee. Tony Robinson, the quarterback. Tennessee trying for 2. Robinson with the ball. Give him 2. Tony Robinson keeps and sneaks. And the Volunteers miraculously have taken the lead over Alabama.
And of course, the 16-14 Classic in 85, best remembered for this incredible Dale Jones interception.
Shula back to throw, left-handed, out into the flat, broken up. Was that intercepted in midair? Ladies and gentlemen, what a play by Dale Jones. He was 2 feet away from Mike Shula, and as Shula released the ball, Dale Jones just reached out and picked it out of midair. An unbelievable interception.
There were many more games, and it was tough to pick them all, but picking the top game was easy. John and Bill both agreed that the Volunteers' 1986 Sugar Bowl win over Miami had to be their number one thrill.
Yes, here's the blitz. Dickey in trouble. Skips out. Throws it all into the end zone. Give him 6. Touchdown! Jeff Smith! What a play by Darrell Dickey. As Dickey eluded a slant, he stepped out to his right, and there, wide open, from Milan, Tennessee, Jeff Smith.
I had a feeling about that game when we went there that we were going to win. And I don't know why. Certainly wasn't anything logical that would tell you that. But just the whole atmosphere of everything, and I talked to Coach Majors, and he had indicated to me we're going after him. We're going to put some heat on the quarterback. And if they beat us, they beat us, but we're pulling out all stops.
Tennessee comes with an all-out blitz. Testaverde's in trouble, and Testaverde is going to be sacked. Testaverde is sacked.
Before the game, we were up there in the press box, and I went in back where the press goes to get a cup of coffee. And it was Keith Jackson, I think, was doing the color on television, and he was back there, and somebody introduced me to him, and I started talking. He's Tennessee. Yeah, well, how are they going to do? You know, I said, well, I think we'll be all right. And he says, well, I hope they can play well enough so that we don't lose our audience by halftime. And I said to him, we're going to beat them. And he looked at me like I was nuts. He said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I felt we were going to beat them. And I don't know why, but we did. And it was that great football game.
The ball's in an I formation. Handoff Powell, left side, cuts back to the interior. He's at the 5, he's at the 4, he's at the 3, he's at the 2, he's at the 1. He is hit, he fumbles the ball. It has been recovered in the end zone, I think, by Tennessee.
It was the culmination of a long, long wait. Let's go to the Sugar Bowl as champions. And it had all come together. And my feeling was the fans just filled it. And it was just like a home game, except we were out of town, so we don't have to be too courteous, you know? Let it all go. And so the fans were on the road, but it was so that they had a different attitude. They were louder, more into it than they are at home games. So when they came out, yes, but I wasn't as confident as Bill. And I don't remember that we ever discussed that, what his expectation was. But and when they scored early, then my feeling was people said, well, it's been a great year. We've had a great trip. We're in the Sugar Bowl, so we get beat. Miami's a great football team. Then what happened after that? Tennessee wins 35-7. And that makes it the most memorable game that we have done, in my opinion, agreeing with Bill. That would be the #1 game.
Miami in a 4-man front. Give Powell, right side 40, 45-50, gets outside 45-40, 35-30, 25-20, 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 60 yards. Jeff Powell, touchdown, Big Island.
Well, there were a lot of great plays in the game, as there are in any, but the one play I remember was, of course, the run by Jeff Powell, who was not that well known. He had played some, but I'll never forget that it was just perfect execution. That was a team play, Bill Anderson. That was a team play. And he just...
He had some speed, too.
He had the speed. He had the speed, but I mean, he had the blocking was there, everything, the execution was there. Dickey set it up right, and he was just, and that was it, 28-7, and that, what Miami fans were there, and they were mercilessly outnumbered. No question about it. That did it. That did it. And Miami, from that moment on, they were not in the game.
Powell just comes roaring down the greensward.
And again, screwy things that I remember. I remember and people were just so exhilarated that you just walk through this mass of people that are pounding and everything else. And we were on one of the top floors. I've forgotten how many floors there were, but I'll remember. I just wanted to get out of the crowd. They're great people. Just get out, and the escalator. Tennessee fans had destroyed the escalator, and it just was not even functioning. And just so to get on to the elevator, they weren't functioning. So you just threw, well, okay, we'll stay all night.
Bill, that's the stuff of which great stories are written, it has been a storybook year for the Orange and White. There's no question, John. This has been the most unbelievable year, I believe, that I've been around.
For both Bill and I, doing Tennessee football is a hobby. Most people probably don't realize that, and that's fine, because we have other business interests that are basically our basic business, have been. It has been a very extraordinary experience for us. It is a very extraordinary experience for us because we get along well together. We have a lot of laughs. We have good people working with us that we haven't mentioned all of them, but people on our staff. And the main thing is the Tennessee fans. The Tennessee fans and their response makes us feel that maybe we are doing a little something to make life better for them. That's the way I feel, Bill.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think, you know, it's a good feeling to be out there and the fans respond. You know, you've got to feel pretty good about that. But that's what makes college football, and I'm just glad that I've been able to be a part of it, especially Tennessee, because that's, you know, that's my first love.
I'll say one thing. It does not seem like 25 years to me since that first. Do you?
Not at all. Not at all.
It's been a great run for John Ward and Bill Anderson here in the Vol Radio Network booth. They've been such a big part of Tennessee's football heritage over the past 24 years. We hope you've enjoyed a look back at some of their favorite games, and also thank you for being a part of the 25th anniversary of John Ward and Bill Anderson with the Vol Radio Network. Tennessee fans, of course, hope that John and Bill continue for many, many years to come, and John shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon.
That decision will be based on, first, health, and fortunately I'm in good health. Second, on whether I can devote, whether I can commit mentally to the time it takes to prepare for the game and enjoy doing it. Third, in listening to the tapes, which I do every game, if I feel that the concentration level that's required seems to be wavering, it won't take me any time to make that decision. Now, there will be no press conference. There will be no, he's going to, at the end of this year, at the end of the next year is going to be his last year. The final game, I'll just say to the listeners, because they're the most important part of it, that's it. I've enjoyed it. That's the way it's going to end. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Key play in this drive. I think he's probably trying to figure out what particular pass route might go best, but as officials motion for time to back into play, they're in the huddle and ready to go. Tennessee standing there, they're very slow coming out of the huddle. Crucial situation and down for Vanderbilt. Fisher under the center, and John's back, thank goodness.
Here's Fisher, the quarterback, 3rd and 5, sends a man in motion out this way. Fisher back to throw, is going to throw the long pass downfield. It's up for grabs. It is intercepted. Tennessee on a deflection. 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40. Down he goes to the 38-yard line. All the way to the Vanderbilt.
Anderson was new to broadcasting. He knew nothing at all about broadcast, having been in insurance and football. And at the very first game we did, I think, was the Rice game in Dallas, not Dallas.
Fort Worth? I don't know where Rice is. I know it's in...
Anyway, we were doing the Rice game. And the engineer, this was probably 20, 30 minutes before broadcast time, the engineer hollered down to Bill, said, say something to Bill so I can check your level of your mic. And Bill had heard John say, "Good night, Telco." That's the signal for the telephone company to unplug the network. Bill had heard John say that before, and he had no idea what it meant. And when the engineer asked for a voice level, Bill said, "Good night, Telco." Well, immediately the network was shut down. The telephone company took that as a signal to shut the network down. And here the network was shut down before the game ever started. Luckily, they got it back on in time.
Well, it is Galt pulling it down at the 6. Galt, 10, 15, 20. Galt outside, 25. Galt 30. Galt 35. Galt 40. Galt 45, 50, 45, 40. Yes, sir. Willie Galt, ladies and gentlemen, is running all the way to the state capitol. Give him 6.
I guess the funniest story I can think about John Ward and working with him for 22 years goes back to 1985. When I had just brought a new man on board, Cleve Hayes. He was our head engineer, and unbeknownst to Cleve or myself, we had ordered these new microphone and headsets. They were Sennheisers, and we were right before the first game, and John put it on for a headset, and all of a sudden John said, "This will not work." He said, "I hear too much noise coming in from outside of the headset. It's just too much. I can't wear these." And with that, Cleve grabbed a thing of duct tape, which is, I don't know if you people are familiar with duct tape, but it's about 2 inches wide. It's this big gray heavy tape, and started wrapping the headset around John's ears, and just to keep the noise out. As we were doing this was probably with about 10 minutes to kick off. People in the other booths were starting to look over at John, and Cleve just kept rapping and rapping and rapping. I guess he probably went around his head 25 times just to keep the sound out of there. And it really was a funny thing. It worked. We did the broadcast, and probably the funniest thing was trying to get John out of there after the broadcast.
Back once again at Neyland Stadium, you didn't miss a thing except the beauty of the Pride of the Southland band playing. Tennessee's waiting for Auburn to come on. Auburn's waiting for Tennessee to come on. I hope somebody comes on. Bill, let's take a look at the defensive alignments for these two teams.
Where were we, John? I've got lost talking to Bibb here. I wasn't paying attention to you.
Well, that's
sorry.
Neither are the listeners, really.
One of my favorite memories of Bill Anderson, we were on the air at halftime of the Notre Dame game in '91. Tennessee, of course, getting beat 31-14, and hadn't really slowed Notre Dame down at all in the first half. And so I turned to Bill. We were analyzing the first half, and I said, "Bill, what's it going to take for Tennessee to get back and win this game?" And Anderson, very deadpan, looked at me and said, "About 60 points."
Long count. Streeter keeps upfield. 25. Breaks to 30. Turns on the gas. 35. 40. Streeter 45. Streeter 50. Cuts back. And they go all the way. 45. 40. 45. 40. 25. 20. 15. 10. 5. Give him 6. Touchdown, Tennessee.
Yet he played. What a run that was, John. He got some good luck, and he picked it up down the field, but he broke that line of scrimmage. He broke a tackle there. He pulled away from one fella, and then the orange wave started picking him up, and it was home sailing all the way.
From Sylva, North Carolina, Jimmy Streeter goes 80 yards on a scrambling dash, and Tennessee leads California 6-3.
That was a long time ago. That's how much scientific knowledge John Ward and I both had. We were on the boat with some friends, and we decided we'd have baked beans that day on the boat. We got the fire going, the charcoal grill, stuck the beans on top of the grill, and in about 10 minutes, we had one of the loudest explosions ever recorded on Fort Loudon Lake as those beans went all to smithereens. I've still got shrapnel shells on my leg.
Bill, people who are familiar with Washington State, and perhaps Tennessee fans aren't that familiar, Samoa, it's an unusual name. And it's also unusual that, as my good friend Bud Ford, Assistant Sports Information Director, said, he's amphibious. He can throw with either hand.
It's football time in Tennessee. Good afternoon, everybody. Tennessee and Vanderbilt playing at Nashville, Tennessee this afternoon. And working with me again today is the analyst on our Vol Network radio broadcast, Bill Anderson, who back in 1955 was the hero of the Tennessee-Vanderbilt game. Do you remember that one, Bill?
Very well, John, but that's been a long time ago.
You were slender and you were very sinewy in those days. Still very sinewy.
And slender.
Tell us a little bit about this Tennessee widens. I have a philosophy regarding the way a broadcast should be done. My job is to report the game accurately. But the main thing is to report it and not to editorialize. To be objective for both teams and to be enthusiastic, honestly, for Tennessee. But basically it is to report what goes on the way you should read it on the front page and not in somebody's column. As Tennessee had the comeback of comebacks on the final Saturday afternoon, the Vols snatched a tie from defeat to battle to a 21-21 deadlock with Vanderbilt on a rainy afternoon at Nashville.
A lot of little boys would like to grow up to be like John Ward, Tennessee's #1 sportscaster and the voice of the Tennessee Vols. He's on radio and television, and he gets to go to every UT football and basketball game free. But before you future sportscasters begin practicing your play-by-plays, you should know about that one particular day each year when the voice of the Vols broadcasts on both radio and television with both football and basketball.
Vanderbilt comes into this game.
November 30th was such a day. In one 14-hour period, he broadcast an out-of-town football game, a night basketball game at home,
in the second half of
a
the game,
TV show at midnight, and taped radio interviews in between.
Ward, number 44. Lee is number 8. Good pursuit from Tennessee's Page and Spive. A loss of 3 at his third, and 11 at the 23.
This is how he did it.
Scottsville, Kentucky. See, I thought that's right, Scottsville, Kentucky.
John Ward's first and only full meal of the day came at 7 a.m. at his Nashville motel. Before breakfasting, he did warm-up exercises and took a brisk walk. For this particular Saturday, John had already made advanced preparations, so this gave him time to chat with fans who recognize him everywhere in the state.
I think anybody would be dishonest if they didn't say they like being known. I hope in a favorable way, but even if not, anybody's got ego and they like to be recognized. There are times when, in all honesty, that you wish that you weren't. Everybody's hammy in this business, I guess, or everybody is. And that's important. That really is important. That's an important part of it, really, to me. And to get letters from people who, a lot of people write in and say they enjoy the broadcast. A lot of people write in and say they don't enjoy certain things. A lot of people write in and say you're terrible. And a lot of people write unsigned letters. But all the letters, except those kind, really, which you sort of disregard, I do. But the ones where they really are trying to help with criticism or whatever, that means a lot to somebody. It does to me.
At 9 a.m., John drove to Dudley Field at Vanderbilt with his TV, radio, and photographic crews. As the Vandy Band practiced, John and his crews began unloading. They had arrived too early. John waited in the rain for the press box to open. Once inside, he and radio engineer Bob Williams began technical preparations for the UT Vandy football broadcast, now 3 hours away. John had already done his homework. He reads 6 different out-of-town newspapers a week, as well as the Knoxville newspapers. Meanwhile, outside, an hour before game time, John went down to the wet field for a little ritual he has established with Nashville newspaperman F.M. Williams.
I believe in the Clemson game. I know it was the Clemson game that Tennessee football was, we'd had a rough opening season and people were upset and all that. So for what it meant, I was going down to shake Battle's hand before the game. And as I walked on the field, F.M. Williams was there for just the same thing. So we both went out and we shook his hand. And Tennessee won the game 29-28. So in Nashville, it was pouring down rain. Nobody in his right mind would be out there trying to shake hands with somebody. But we were there to go through the ritual.
As the rains came, John sought shelter under the stadium with business manager Gus Manning. When Coach Battle arrived, they were surrounded by fans and friends.
It's just wet. It is something it's something for somebody to come and ask for an autograph, perhaps particularly little kids. I mean, 3 and 4 and 5 years old who come up, and you know that it is a major thing for them, because I would have been the same way, to go up and ask somebody they don't know to sign an autograph, and there's no way that you can tell them that it means more to you that they would do it. But to them, it's a big deal. I know kids take it home, put it on their wall and things like that, so,
The ritual completed, John returned to the press box, And promptly at 12:45, he and colorman Bill Anderson were on the Vol Football Network.
It's football time in Tennessee. Good afternoon, everybody. Tennessee and Vanderbilt playing at Nashville, Tennessee this afternoon. And working with me again today is the analyst on our Vol Network radio broadcast, Bill Anderson, who back in 1955 was the hero of the Tennessee-Vanderbilt game. Do you remember that one, Bill?
Very well, John, but that's been a long time ago.
You were slender and you were very sinewy in those days. Still very sinewy.
And slender.
Tell us a little bit about this Vanderbilt team today. What Vol fans can really anticipate from Vanderbilt?
Well, I think you're going to see Vanderbilt putting the ball up in the air a lot, John. They don't have the people.
During a broadcast, John is assisted by a producer and 2 spotters. John believes in reporting fairly and accurately about both teams in a contest without bias.
People who listen to Tennessee football, for the most part, there are some new listeners every week that you have to think about that you want to be fair with. For the most part, they tune in, they listen to Tennessee football, they know it's a Tennessee announcer. And most of the people who listen are Tennessee fans. There are some who aren't. But by and large, they know it's a Tennessee announcer. So, by nature, I mean, even if you were completely unbiased the other way, unless you just went to the ridiculous level, they're going to think you're biased because this is the Tennessee network, and, you know, there's no way to convince them that you aren't. But I think when it gets to being objective is that doesn't, I don't think, I've never said this, I've never said we have the football, or we have the basketball, or we have the ball. Never said, because that's wrong, I think. Some people say it. But and at the same time, if the player on the other team makes a good play that requires some kind of comment editorially, then I've made it, and always will.
Downfield across the middle, pass complete. Jesse Mathers makes the catch, is immediately decked by Jimmy Watts, but it's
anybody in a business that wears any kind of creative ability in there, you have a tendency to always try to do it different. You can't, I don't believe you can get in a rut and do every game the same way, because you have to keep trying to improve. And that means sometimes you change and do things worse. But I think if you didn't at least try to change, it'd be boring to begin with.
Five-man front. Holloway back looking to throw. Nobody open. He will run the ball, and he'll get 6 yards. Moving forward, tackled by middle guard Tom Galviers.
Immediately following the game, John was on the team bus headed for the airport. On the chartered flight back to Knoxville, he began planning a replay of the game for the Bill Battle TV show with producer Ernie Robertson. At 7 p.m., the team flight landed, and John hit the pavement running. He had 45 minutes to drive to Stokely Fieldhouse in the basketball game between Tennessee and Wisconsin. He made it. At 7:45, John was back on radio, this time on the Vol Basketball Network.
I think preparation is the key to anything. In doing a film, doing the way a TV show is best, really is being thoroughly prepared before you go there as to what you're going to have. Then, when the 2 or 3 unexpected things happen, strictly by being prepared, the 2 or 3 unexpected things, you can showcase them more because they stand out in your mind. If everything was unexpected, then what really is unexpected wouldn't be. And that's why, like you say, if you go to a real high level, if, for example, in basketball, if King or Grunfeld make some unbelievable, I know they're going to do a great job, but when they really do something unbelievable, then that's when the level goes way up.
At 10 p.m., following the Vols' victory, John commandeered a typewriter to finalize the script for the Battle TV show to be videotaped 2 hours later at a local TV station across town.
Well, preparing for the Battle show is probably less difficult than for preparing for the game for 2 reasons. One, on the Battle show, we have real experienced professional people involved in various facets of putting it together. So it's not as much an individual effort, let's say. But the main thing is that in the Battle show, you have hindsight, and on the radio network. It's all what I call educated foresight. On TV, the hardest thing on the battle show is not just doing it the same way every week. So you have to come up with new things. Sometimes they're lousy. But I think you have to have new things every week, really.
Shortly after midnight on Sunday morning, the videotapes for the Bill Battle Show were ready to roll. The program must be completed by 3 a.m. in order for the TV stations carrying the show to receive the tapes for showings at various times Sunday.
Sadler, slow motion. Yeah, that's all right. If we can work those cameras that close, that's okay. I can see that. Yeah, we played that. That's a good play. Okay, everybody, wake up.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Tennessee football 1974. It started with a tie, it ended with a tie. In between, a lot of excitement. Coach Bill Battle, this one playing it right down close to the wire.
About as close as you can get. When you come back with 7 seconds left on the clock to tie it, that's about as close a football game as you can get. I guess we got a little bit...
After the taping, John detained Coach Battle for a short radio interview to be aired later in the week. When they finished, it was nearly dawn. Why does he do it?
The thing that I like best about broadcasting probably would be, and this, I mean, this sincerely sounds corny again, you sort of become cynical. The thing would be that possibly you are communicating with people in a way that adds to their enjoyment and their relation to the University of Tennessee. And that's really why I do it. I'm sincere. I mean, I make a few bucks, but the main thing is that when you go to Union City, Tennessee, or when you go to Pulaski, Tennessee, or Nashville, or Tuscaloosa, or when you go somewhere like St. Petersburg, Florida, and somebody comes up to you, or Ann Arbor, Michigan. We had a guy come up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, who listens to every Tennessee basketball game in Detroit. How? I don't know. He says he does. He may get it on the phone. I don't know. But when he does that, and you know that you've got the pressure of being the link, that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of challenge, and that's the best part of it.
Here's a draw play that got us. There's Ernie Ward going.
On Saturdays, John Ward belongs to the thousands of Tennessee sports fans. But on Sundays, he belongs to me. I'm the voice behind the voice. I'm Mrs. John Ward.